Okay na tayo, sir. Okay. Good morning. We will be starting in a few minutes. Please be reminded to register through the registration link or the code pinned in the comment section, or please scan the QR code flashed on the screen. For your colleagues who would still want to join, they may also log at Philippine Women's University's Facebook and YouTube accounts. Certificate of attendance upon accomplishment of evaluation will be issued in a week's time. Omnibus and School of Food Science and Technology background.
Could be. For over 100 years, the Philippine Women's University has been known as a leader in quality education. In 1934, PWU moved into its main campus on Taft Avenue, and since the 1970s has been co-educational. Located in the heart of Metro Manila, it is easily accessible by public transport and surrounded by affordable housing. Today's PWU offers undergraduate and graduate courses in several fields of study. Its business and management programs are responsive to the needs of industry, using evolving technology for global competence. PWU graduates excel in arts and sciences, education, social work, and diplomacy. Its fine arts and music programs have produced outstanding graduates through a holistic education that treasures heritage as well as excellence. PWU has pioneered in fields such as food science, nutrition and dietetics, medical technology, pharmacy, and nursing. PWU continues to play an essential role in producing graduates who possess the skills that make them competitive in the country and anywhere in the world.
Okay. I am Diana Cecilia Ezra Zambrano Estrella, a science research specialist 2, a technical manager of the chemistry laboratory of the Department of Science and Technology Central Luzon, or Region 3. Also a Central Luzon Food Safety team member, a DOST scholar under the Master in Food Safety Management of PWU. Together with me are my DOST eligible scholar classmates hosting this year's Philippine Women's University's Food Safety webinar. Classmates, please turn on your cameras or videos, please. Yes, Ma'am Mini, at your cue.
Okay, first panel. Okay, first panel. 1, 2, 3, smile.
Thank you, ma'am. A round of applause, please, for these MFSM DOST scholars. Thank you, my dearest classmates. So to formally commence our program, may I invite everyone for the opening prayer or doxology, followed by the singing of the national anthem, Lupang Hinirang, and the university hymn to be led by the Philippine Women's University's Vocal Ensemble. Thank you.
Puyat ka nang magiting sa manlulupig, di ka pa nasisiid sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong bukaw. May dilagang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kisap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagtilingi. Ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magdidinig. Lupa ng araw ng at ipagsitamay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya dapat may mga kami ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Welcome back, and thank you for dialing in at our webinar today, especially to all our guests and participants all across the country and even abroad. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace be upon you and God's mercy and blessings. An Arabic greeting of peace, mercy, and blessings from our Muslim brothers and sisters. So let us try to greet each other in our own dialects. Naimbag nga aldaw tao amin, inulakano, gawi say agaw yu amin in kankanay, maayong adlaw in Bisaya. These all mean magandang araw in Tagalog or good day in English. Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Let's try another one. Naimbag nga nag-agsapa in Ilocano, gawi say agiwyo in kankanay, maayong buntag in Bisaya. I have another one. Buenos dias in Chabacano. Yes, what does this mean? Yes, I heard it right. Good morning in English or magandang umaga in Tagalog. Magandang umaga po, Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, and in other parts of the world. For those watching at PWU Zoom account and Zoom Live, please give a heart reaction as I call your island or wherever you are. So from all our sisters and brothers in Mindanao, can we have a heart reaction? Are they coming in? Well, thank you. Yes, thank you very much. How about our brothers and sisters from Visayas? Kindly give us your heart reactions, please, so we may know you are all here. Thank you very much. How about our brothers and sisters from Luzon? Please send us your heart reactions. Yan, okay. Thank you very much. And of course, how about our brothers and sisters in other parts of the world who are with us right now? Heart reactions, please. Thank you very much. Well, as of now, we have a growing number of participants. I think we're more than 100 right now. So we hope and pray that after this webinar series, you will be more inspired and driven in becoming food safety advocates and ambassadors. Thank you. We look forward that you will be with us until the end or until the closing program this afternoon. It is with much joy and pride to share with you all that this webinar is the fruit of all our learnings in our Philippine Women University's journey. A round of virtual applause, please, to all our professors in the School of Food Science and Technology, headed by Doc Ligaya Berganza. Can you please turn on your camera? Ma'am Debbie Alcasabas, please turn on your camera, ma'am. Ma'am Lynn Lorilla, please turn on your camera. Sir Glenn De La Cruz, Ma'am Guillermo De Leon, of course. Ano po nila sa amin, tiyaga, mababait, mabubuti, no? Without their thorough and motherly guidance and NP support. We'll have a picture po with our professors. Please turn on your cameras. Ma'am Minnie, are you ready? To all our professors and faculty members, thank you so much. Okay, so the future of food safety, everyone's responsibility webinar, teaser and art card presentation, please. The future of food safety, everyone's responsibility. The webinar topics are very timely and encompasses almost all the issues and requirements of the food chain. In this 2-day activity, we are to have 3 sessions. So the first 2 ones we had yesterday, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. Food safety along the food chain, how to go through the food safety compliance. And right now, for the 3rd session, we have the food safety management systems. So we hope you will still continue to stay with us. Okay. Now we proceed with our webinar house rules and guidelines. Okay. Please ensure a stable internet connection. There will be a 10-minute question and answer portion after each session. You may type your questions in the Philippine Women University's Facebook and YouTube comment sections. The link for the evaluation form will be posted at the end of each session. All evaluation today should be turned in 5:30 p.m. Only registered participants who completed the evaluation form will receive the e-certificates. So, 1 session is 1 certificate. So don't miss today's session po, no? Okay, we now go to today's session. I think there are students watching right now. We would like to invite you to start your college journey or your intermediate years in PWU as you take yung BS Food Technology course. And for those who would like to take their masters, we have masters or MS in Food Science and Master in Food Safety Management in PWU. So as you will see, we have competent faculty staff. We have all the resources that you will be needing. So we hope that later on you will consider and be with us here in PWU. Okay. She is a BS Environmental Science graduate and is presently a science research specialist too, and handles setup, consultancy, and training. These units are in the OST Caraga Administrative Region. She is also an active Caraga Food Safety member, and she is one of today's webinar speakers and the session moderator for the last session or session 3, Leveling Up Food Safety Compliance through Food Safety Management System. Friends, let us give it up for Miss Marie Crispy de la Armente. A round of applause, please.
So thank you very much, Ma'am Diana, for your introduction. Maayong buntag sa atong tanan. Welcome to the second day of our food safety webinar. And for this whole day session, we will be discussing food safety management systems to level up your food safety compliance. So we are grateful for your active participation in yesterday's discussion, and we hope that naalala niyo pa ang mga pinag-usapan kahapon as they will serve as foundation for our discussions today. So ladies and gentlemen, we have officially entered the GMP required zone. It means that to level up your food production or processing and proceed to a food safety management system, it is important that your good manufacturing practices, including your good hygienic practices and sanitation procedures, are already in place and is being implemented. Now, this morning's topic will include discussions on risk analysis, hazard analysis and critical control points, and halal awareness. Now, to get the ball rolling, let's proceed to our first topic. So, risk taker ka ba? Kung oo, pag-usapan muna natin yan when it comes to food. So, from yesterday's discussion, we have learned that food safety affects us all. And in our daily lives, we naturally want to avoid food that will put our health and those of our loved ones at risk. Now, the risks in the food industry are always changing, and risk analysis provides a way to strengthen the ability of our food safety management systems to meet the current challenges. So to bring us clarity on this topic, we have here with us Mr. Norly L. Aidasani. He has a degree in biochemistry and is an SRS-1 from the Industrial Technology and Development Institute of the OST. Sir Norly, take it away.
Thank you, Ma'am Marie Chris, for that enthusiastic introduction. Good morning, everyone. Before we start on this topic's discussion, let us first ponder on the daily risk in our lives. During our travel to our destination, like our office or our school, are there any risks involved that may hinder us from arriving safely and on time to our destination? Like the risk of not waking up on time, or the risk of transportation vehicle breakdown when commuting. This risk, when it occurs, can negatively affect our travel experience. So in this lecture, let us explore what are the risks and its impact on keeping our food safe through the conduct of food safety risk analysis. This will be the presentation outline for our discussion. First, we will define the terms that will be used in the food safety risk analysis, followed by a brief history discussion on how food safety risk analysis came to be. Then we will discuss what is food safety risk analysis and its three components, which are the risk assessment, risk management, and risk communication. Let us now differentiate hazard from risk. So hazard is defined as biological, chemical, and/or physical agent in or condition of food with the potential to cause an adverse health effect, while risk is defined as the function of the probability of an adverse health effect and its severity in case it happens. So to better visualize their difference, let us focus on the image on the right. So on the left side of the image, a person is near the sea where a shark is present. So the shark is considered as a hazard since it has the potential to cause harm to the person. While on the right side of the image, we can see that the person is now swimming with the shark. Swimming with the shark is considered as a risk since it increases the probability of that hazard to cause harm. In the context of food, hazards can either be physical, for instance, pieces of bones in fish products, can also be biological, for instance, harmful bacteria, viruses, or parasites, or chemical, for instance, mercury in fish or acrylamide in starch foods. Risk correlated to food is determined by the exposure, which answers the following questions. How much, how long, and how often is the exposure to that hazard? So an example of the hazard and risk in food, let us explore salmonella and egg. So salmonella is considered as a biological hazard, which are innately present in poultry products like the egg. Exposure to salmonella is higher when we handle or eat the egg raw, compared to the lower exposure to the hazard if the egg is cooked properly. So now let us define what is food safety. So we have known that hazard and risk are both important to ensure food safety. Let us now define what is food safety. So food safety is the assurance that food will not cause harm. So let us remember the phrase that if it isn't safe, it isn't food. And risk analysis is defined as the process of identifying, estimating, and prioritizing risk to the business operations, like the company's mission, function, image, and reputation. So in some cases, when the company's operation has been jeopardized, it is harder to recover from them. So risk analysis can help develop mitigation strategies to minimize those risks. So that concludes the definition of terms. Let us now explore how risk analysis was first developed and how food safety risk analysis came to be. So here is the history of food safety risk analysis. So it started with the usage of risk analysis by FAO or WHO in 1955. And in 1963, Codex Alimentarius was established to internationally set up food hygiene and safety standards. And in 1995, risk analysis was first used to address food safety standard issues. And in 1997, risk management was first used in food safety. While in 1998, risk communication was first applied to share food safety information to the public, followed by in 1999, risk assessment of food microbial hazards was first conducted. And lastly, in the year 2000, risk communication in regards to microbial hazards was established. So that completes the food safety risk analysis and its components. Now that we are familiar how food safety risk analysis came to be, let us now discuss what is food safety risk analysis. So food safety risk analysis is defined as a scientific approach for assessing the risk in food and estimating their impact to human health and safety. So food safety risk analysis are composed of three components, which are the risk assessment, risk management, and risk communication. Let us now explore their relationships and their interactions. So in this diagram, risk assessment and risk management interlaps with each other, which indicates that those two components have certain activities that are reliant on each other. For example, risk management identifies the problems in the business or food safety, while it relays the problems that needs to be assessed in the risk assessment. The risk assessment produces risk estimates and data that the risk manager uses to formulate decision policies to mitigate the risk. While for risk communication, it encompasses both the risk assessment and risk management, since interactive exchange of information during the risk analysis process is important. Let us now discuss how food safety risk analysis can benefit the public and your food business. So conducting a food safety risk analysis can help in developing a risk estimate of a food safety hazard. After developing a risk estimate, we can identify and implement control measures to control the risks. After identifying the risk, we can effectively communicate with the stakeholders food safety regulatory agencies and the public how the risks should be handled. So when we minimize the risk, we increase the safety of our food products. It will also help us garner our confidence of our consumers, which can help retain their loyalty and increase profits in the long run. So those are the benefits of conducting risk analysis. So let us now explore the first component of risk analysis, which is the risk assessment and how it is conducted. So risk assessment is defined as a scientific-based process which determines the likelihood and severity of an adverse health effect in a given population exposed to that hazard. So it has two forms. It can be either qualitative or quantitative. So qualitative risk assessment is done when there is not enough evidence or data to conduct the risk assessment, while quantitative risk assessment is usually done in the international scale by the FAO or WHO and the local food safety regulatory agencies like the FDA. So quantitative risk assessment also uses numerical data to characterize the risk. So to give you a better view of their differences, here is an example. So for the qualitative risk assessment, an example of the identified hazard is the inorganic arsenic. So for the qualitative risk assessment, data was generated which shows the approximate population size that are exposed to the hazard, which includes the approximate dosage. While for the quantitative risk assessment, they have developed a risk model for predicting the chances of the adverse health effect corresponding to the dosage of exposure. So either of the combination of the two forms of risk assessment can be used when conducting a risk assessment. Let us now discuss and dissect the different four steps of risk assessment. So the four steps are hazard identification, hazard characterization, hazard assessment, and risk characterization. So the hazard identification, hazard characterization are usually the first two steps of the risk assessment. So they are part of the toxicological assessment. So this image summarizes the sequence of the first steps of risk assessment. So the first step is conducted, which is the hazard identification, which is followed by the hazard characterization. So both can simultaneously occur, and part of the toxicological assessment, followed by the exposure assessment. So the data generated from the first three steps will be then used by the risk characterization step to determine what is the final risk rating of the hazard. So we have now seen the summarized version of the risk assessment from the previous slide. So let us now discuss each step of the risk assessment in detail. So the first step of risk assessment is hazard identification. Hazard identification is defined as the identification of agent that can cause an adverse health effect. Hazard can be categorized as either physical, chemical, or biological agents. For example, on the image on the left, Clostridium botulinum can survive and proliferate in low-acid canned foods. So Clostridium botulinum is an anaerobic pathogen which thrives on anaerobic conditions like the sealed canned products. A possible indicator in canned foods for botulism is the bulging of the top portion of the can. So if you saw this sign, it is better to properly dispose the canned food. So a safe way for the disposal of contaminated food from the FAO or WHO is to wear a plastic gloves or latex gloves before handling the contaminated food. So when handling the open containers, we need to avoid direct exposure to our skin. After that, we can use plastic bags to contain the contaminated food, followed by another coating or another covering of the contaminated food with another plastic bag to ensure that it does not leak. After that, we need to properly dispose them in trash containers away from our home and away from the access of scavengers or pets. After the proper disposal of the contaminated food, we need to properly wash our hands so that we can avoid cross-contaminating or contaminating other surface areas. Another example of biological hazard in food is Salmonella in poultry or Bacillus cereus in rice. So after that, the next step after the first step is the hazard identification. So it's the hazard characterization. So hazard characterization is the quantitative or quantitative assessment of the nature of adverse health effects associated with the hazard. So hazard characterization also provides an estimate on the severity and duration of the effects. Adverse health effects can depend on the agents of or hazards, the individual person that will consume the product, and their consumption pattern. So if the consumer eats lots of the contaminated food, there's a higher chance that he will get sick. So a sample of hazard identified in this example below is Bacillus cereus in cooked or uncooked rice. So the hazard is characterized based on its adverse health effects when it is consumed. So the Bacillus cereus, when consumed, it causes gastrointestinal diseases or illnesses like vomiting, diarrhea. Another example is on the image on the right. So this shows the dose adverse health effect response. So this was produced using the quantitative risk assessment. So this better summarizes what is the effect of the hazard. After the second step, the third step is the exposure assessment. So hazardous agents in food at the time of consumption is evaluated at this step. The assessment can either be actual or expected human exposure. So to give an example of exposure assessment, let us focus on the image on the below. So here is an estimate level dose of Bacillus cereus in cooked rice. So this is based on the study of Wang Jun. The level or amount of the Bacillus cereus as time passes increases exponentially at temperature ranges of 25 degrees to 45 degrees Celsius. So for the growth or level Bacillus cereus at 15 degrees Celsius, so it is lower compared to the 25 to 45 range, but given enough time, it will still attain the same amount of Bacillus cereus viable count. So that is why temperature time control is very important to minimize the risk of the microbial hazards from growing. After that, the last step or the fourth step of risk assessment is the risk characterization. So risk characterization provides an estimate of the nature, severity, and duration of the adverse health effects. So let us focus on the risk rating and how it is computed. So risk rating is computed by multiplying the impact level or severity with the likelihood level. So risk rating can be used to evaluate the level of threat of the identified hazard. So the higher the risk rating, the higher the hazard threat, the more we need to prioritize it in our mitigation or risk management. So that concludes the 4 steps of the risk assessment. So let us now conduct an actual qualitative risk assessment. In this case, we will use summa salihia as the food product to be assessed. For this example exercise, so we will be using the 5x5 level risk assessment matrix. So we have 5 levels for the likelihood, which are rare, unlikely, probable, likely, and almost certain. For the severity, we have levels of insignificant, minor, moderate, major, and severe. So to compute for the risk rating, we simply need to multiply the severity with the likelihood. So after getting the risk rating, we can further classify them into low risk for risk ratings, which ranges from 1 to 3. So these are commonly managed by a routinary process. The next is moderate risk for risk ratings 4 to 6. And for risk ratings 8 to 12, we can classify them as high risk. And for risk ratings which ranges from 15 to 25, we can classify them as extreme risk. So extreme risk are prioritized in the risk management process. So this should be properly mitigated and controlled in the process. So this is a process flow chart for the production of Summa Silea. So we will use this. We will use one step from this process flow as the basis for our qualitative risk assessment. So here is an example of a risk assessment template that we can use for the conduct of the risk assessment. So in the actual conduct of the risk assessment, it is important to assess each step or every step of the production process, which usually includes the raw materials, to produce a more comprehensive risk assessment. But in this exercise, we will only choose one step as an example. So for the process step, we will assess the receiving and inspection of raw materials, specifically the ingredient glutinous rice. For the type of hazard identified, so we have input the biological hazard. So for the specific biological hazard at present is the Bacillus cereus. After identifying the hazard, we need to list each characteristic in the risk description, like its occurrence, how does it increase, what are its adverse health effects. So for Bacillus cereus, it is characterized as a soil-borne pathogen innately present in rice, which produces emetic and enterotoxins upon its maturity. So after describing the hazard, we need to assess the level of hazard based on its severity and likelihood. So for the likelihood, for the severity, we rated it as 3. So it is based on the guidelines below, since it has an adverse health effect which only causes moderate injury and is commonly recoverable. For the likelihood, it is rated as 5, since the hazard is innately present in the raw material and will likely occur daily or frequent. So by multiplying the severity and the likelihood, we get a risk rating of 15, which falls under the classification of extreme risk. So since it falls under the classification of extreme risk, we need to properly develop decision policies and mitigation strategies to minimize its effect. So example of recommended preventive controls is to observe good agricultural practices for the supplier or the farmer. So that concludes the risk assessment part. Let us now discuss the second component of risk analysis, which is the risk management. So risk management is defined as a process distinct from risk assessment, which weighs policy alternatives in consultation with all interested parties, considering risk assessment and other factors relevant for health, protection of consumers, and for promotion of fair trade practices and its needed, selecting appropriate prevention and control opinions. So an effective risk management uses the best options to reduce public health risk by controlling the risk as much as possible. Risk management decisions should also be monitored for its effectiveness and its impact to reduce the risk. So results from the risk assessment helps the risk management to choose the best way on how to manage the risk. So here are the major components for effective risk management. So the first is the evaluation of risk based on the risk assessment. Another example of another component for the effective risk management process is the selection of the best course of action and prioritizing the management decisions depending on its effectiveness and cost to benefit ratio. Monitoring and review of risk management measures and documenting all records should also be done to properly review and monitor them. And in case it needs changes, we need to change them accordingly. So to better visualize the risk management process, here is a process flowchart on how risk management occurs. So the first step usually in the risk management is to evaluate the risk depending on the results of the risk assessment. After that, we need to identify the risk response options, whether or not the managed options are worth it. So they can be according to the cost-effective or tolerable. Also, another basis is, are they financially and legally feasible? So after identifying the risk responses, we will then evaluate them based on the risk appetite, cost benefit, stakeholder values, and mandatory requirements set by the local regulatory agencies. So after evaluation of the responses, we rank the decision policies based on their effectiveness and importance. So that is how the risk management process is usually conducted. So that concludes the second component of risk analysis. Let us now discuss the final component, which is the risk communication. So risk communication is defined as the interactive exchange of information and opinion through the risk analysis process. So information is communicated between risk assessors, risk managers, consumers, industry, academia, and other interested parties. To put risk communication into perspective, or in layman terms, so risk communication is the dialogue between risk assessors and risk managers. It is also a dialogue between risk managers and the stakeholders, which includes the consumers. So here is an example of risk communication by the food manufacturer to the consumer via packaging label. So the list of ingredients should be declared completely in the label, especially any possible allergens. Proper storage and expiration date are also communicated in this label to ensure that food is consumed safely and according to its intended use. Lot ID or batch number should also be included in the label to facilitate efficient and effective product recall in case a food safety violation has occurred. Next slide. Another example of risk communication is the FDA microbial guidelines for processed or pre-packed foods. So this document contains the maximum allowable microbial content to keep the food product safe for consumption. For example, for our food product Suma, so it falls under the category of rice-based desserts. And based on the requirements set here, the Bacillus reus, for example, should not exceed the 10,000 CFU per gram count per sample. So above the limit set here, the food products will be considered as unsafe and unfit for human consumption. Another example of risk communication in food business operation. This is another example of risk communication in the food business operation. So examples are the conduct of staff training for our staff, so that they're better aware of the proper way and the good manufacturing practices. Another example is to apply for certificates like LTO and CPR. So upon the completion of these certificates, or upon getting these certificates, we are more confident that our food product is safer, and it shows to our consumers that we are following the standards set by the food regulatory agencies. Another example is that the food business operator should be directly involved in the operation and management of their food business, because it starts with the managers and how they allot the proper budget and the proper commitment to commit to the safety of their food products. So that concludes the risk analysis process. So here is a summary of the references that I use in this presentation. You may take a screenshot of this slide if you want to further read about food safety risk analysis. So before I end my presentation, I would like to impart to you the message that you can make your food business and product safer and better through the conduct of risk analysis, and ensuring food safety is everyone's responsibility. So if you have any further queries, you may contact me through the details shown in the slide. So that's all. Thank you for listening.
So thank you
Back
very
to
much.
you, Ma'am.
Okay. So thank you very much, Sir Norley, for that very concise explanation on risk analysis in the food safety or in our food industry. Now, please raise your questions. So we are now in the open forum. So please, you may now type in your questions in the comment section on Facebook and also at YouTube. And also for those interested in Zoom, you may raise your question. So it can be in any language or local dialect, no? So if you're not comfortable with English, pwede po Tagalog, Bisaya, makasabot me. So do type them in now, for we have a limited time in addressing your questions. So much as we would like to address everyone's questions, same as what happened yesterday, we have time limitation, and it would be very much appreciated if your raised questions will include your emails. So if nag-type po tayo ng question, also please include your emails just in case that we won't have time to address them at this moment. We will send you a personalized answer sooner. So thank you. So now we proceed to our first question. Sir Norley, are you ready?
Yes.
Sir
Yes.
Norley, okay. So for our first question, Sir Norley, how do we search or identify the hazards in our food product?
So to answer your question, in this modern time, so it is easier to conduct a research of the possible hazard that may be present in our raw material or in our process. So by simply conducting a Google search, it can yield the results that we need. For example, you can type for example, your product is human. So your main ingredients is rice. You can type in the Google search or in the Google text box, risk assessment of rice or hazards, food safety hazards in rice. So after that, it will yield the necessary results or data coming from the food safety regulatory agencies like the FDA, or possibly from the Codex Alimentarius or the FAA or WHO. So they have list of the possible hazards that are present. Other than that, there are also scientific journals that also research what are the possible hazards that may be present. So in the case of Bacillus cereus, so it was gotten from the FDA, which states that the common pathogens present in the rice is Bacillus cereus. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay. So actually, that was a very good question. No? As most of our food processors nowadays, including our, lalo na po yung mga micro enterprises natin, no, they have a hard time when it comes to risk analysis or in identifying hazards. So at this moment po, no, so the internet is your friend. Yun nga lang po, when we search out hazards or anything related to our food product, let us be mindful na yung source ng ating information is credible. So doon lang po tayo sa mga reputable sources or yung mga in authority like the FDA or the Codex, hindi po yung mga blogs. So be careful about that. Dapat po ang ating references ay mga credible references. So the internet is your friend this time. And we also have another question, Sir Norley. So pwede po ba na ma-share nyo po ang copy ng risk assessment template na na-present nyo po kanina for them to be guided?
So the risk assessment template can be commonly found on the internet naman po. If you want to request, you can request po from me po through the email through the email that I have presented on the last slide. So you may also email us at our general email for your request for the risk assessment template.
Okay, so that's it. So it can be found on the internet. And also, you can send Sir Norley a request doon po sa email na pinresent niya kanina in his presentation. And also, may isa pa tayong questions, no? Question pala. So, sino po or who should be the risk assessors and risk managers sa kanilang company? Kanino po i-assign ang pagiging risk assessor at ang pagiging risk manager? Sir Norley?
Okay. So for the risk assessors, so ang recommended po ng risk assessors usually is yung mga technical persons. Kung nakagraduate sila from college, hopefully yung kanilang degree is related sa food science or food related yung kanilang course. For example po ako, biochemistry graduate po ako, although hindi ko masyado na-tackle yung food safety during my undergrad. Pero I was more aware when I started my work at ITDI. So specifically in this master's degree. So you can read further. Kasi available na ngayon yung mga literature sa mga data online. So a simple search lang about food safety, kapakita na, for example, yung FAO, marami silang documents about risk management and risk assessment. So from there, you can read them and further increase your knowledge. So yun po yung recommended ko sa risk assessors is dapat technical sila as much as possible. For the risk managers, sila naman usually yung part ng management or yung CEO. So sila naman kasi nag-create ng decision policies, saka sila din in charge sa finances ng kanilang food business. So ayun po yung recommendation ko po for both risk assessors and risk managers. Thank you.
So thank you, Sir Norley, for that answer. No? And also, requirement po for the risk assessors and the risk managers na train po sila on food safety. They have knowledge on food safety and alam din po nila kung ano po yung product na pinuproduce. So, meron po silang technical information or technical knowledge about the product, the process, and also yung mga food safety guidelines natin, good manufacturing practices. So the rest, pwede po tayo mag-self-learn, and if not, meron po tayong available na consultants, or you can also ask the OST regarding that. No? So meron po kaming, we can help you with trainings regarding food safety and other related na mga knowledge. So I guess that is it for now. For time's up na po for the Q&A at this portion. However, if you have more remaining questions, please wag po tayo mag-hesitate. Send it in our comment box and also in YouTube and Facebook with your email, as we will be addressing them later if meron pang time. And also if not naman, we will be sending you our answers through email. So let's proceed to our next topic. So our next topic is about hazard analysis and critical control points in food production, which I will be delivering. Now, people have the right to experience or to expect the food that they eat to be safe and suitable for consumption. So this is the opening sentence of the Codex Alimentarius Code of Practice for Hygiene, which is the basis for international food safety regulation. Now, from yesterday's discussion, we already learned about good manufacturing practices. And para ma-upgrade natin ang ating food safety compliance, I will be introducing to you another food safety management system, which is HACCP. Now, this will be the outline of my presentation. So it will revolve around these topics. So first up, what is HACCP? So HACCP is a management system in which food safety is addressed through the identification or the analysis and control of biological, chemical, and physical hazards and allergens. This is coming from raw material production, handling, up until the consumption of the finished product. Now, some of you may ask, is it HACCP, HACCP, HACCP with an accent? So it doesn't really matter how you pronounce it, since it is not a word by itself, but an acronym that stands for Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Point. So as long as you know what those 5 letters stands for, you are good to go. So this was developed and used by the Pillsbury Company in the late 1950s. This is to provide safe food for America's space program. So NASA wanted to ensure that ang baon na pagkain ng mga astronauts are clean and have a long shelf life, because it will be very difficult for them to get sick in space. Wala pong hospital doon. So this is where the idea of HACCP began. And then from then on, HACCP earned international recognition and has turned into a modern science-based food safety management system. Now, a lot of food processors, manufacturers, vendors, business owners are using HACCP as the framework and as their main food safety management system. The guidelines of this application are in the Codex Alimentarius General Principles of Food Hygiene, the 2020 version, which you can download for free. So Google is the key. So it is a legal requirement in several countries, including the USA and the United Kingdom, at all levels of their food chain. So if you plan to market your food products to these countries, HACCP certification is a must. So what is HACCP? Again, it is a program to assure food safety. It is systematic, science-based, and addresses unintentional, reasonably to occur hazards. It is focused on prevention and is product category specific. And of course, it is capable of accommodating change. However, HACCP is not a 100% guarantee of food safety. It is also not a zero-risk system. And it is not a standalone program, as it works in conjunction with good manufacturing practices and good hygienic practices. It addresses only unintentional hazard. So HACCP is part of a bigger food safety system. So it includes systems that addresses intentional hazards. So HACCP unintentional. For the intentional hazards, there are systems such as food defense and food fraud, which will be discussed later this afternoon, so stay tuned. So the following are what is new in the 2020 version of the Codex HACCP. So the management responsibility for the effectiveness of the food hygiene systems are outlined. Second, one of the most significant changes is the inclusion of food safety culture, which can be found in the management commitment to food safety section. Another is that the Codex CCP Decision 3 or Critical Control Point Decision 3 has been removed from the document as of this time to be updated as annex. However, the Codex still makes reference to using it or other approach to identify CCP. So we will be provided with examples later. And then another, the good hygiene practices are outlined and reordered. So an example is it now includes the addition of water suitability. There were also changes to the principles of the HACCP systems, and the Codex HACCP 2020 adds to the risk by requiring allergy control. So the previous ones, the hazards only includes the physical, chemical, and the biological hazards. Now it includes allergen as a hazard. And last, the section of training and competence has been strengthened because the personnel must understand, all personnel must understand the nature of hazards associated with the food, the process, and the storage condition. And all the staff must be aware of food hygiene and personal hygiene. So lahat po, wala pong exemptions. So who is a HACCP for? HACCP is not exclusively for food processors as some of us are familiar with, no? So any organization directly or indirectly involved in the food chain can implement HACCP, from food service such as fast food chains, mga restaurants, hospitals. HACCP can also be applied in farms, fisheries, and dairies, and also, syempre, yung mga food processors natin. And supporting services such as food transporters and distributors can also implement HACCP in their system. So now we come to examples of the implementation of HACCP. So the food service area is actually one of the last hurdles of food items in the food chain. So billions of people eat out all the time and utilize catering services. Thus, the need to strengthen food safety in this sector. So HACCP complements other food safety systems as well, such as halal. So in 2019, when the Philippines agreed to host the Southeast Asian Games or the SEA Games, among the issues was the provision of halal food to the participants, no? Since about 40% of the participating nations are Muslims. So to address this concern, UP Diliman, together with DOSTP Shared, teamed up for an initiative which involves the knowledge practice competency of building food industry personnel who will be involved in the provision of food for the 2019 SEA Games so that safe food will be provided to the participants. So another one is that halal will also be discussed later on. So another is that in the Philippines, as indicated in the Food Safety Act of 2013, Rule 13.5, food business operators shall implement a HACCP-based system only when their markets require it. So, hindi po siya mandatory in the Philippines as of this time. However, for food business operators that are operating within their jurisdiction of the Bureau of Quarantine of the DOH, which includes the in-flight caterers and food service institutions in inter-island passenger water vessels in the Philippines, yun po mga barko, so their food products shall be compliant to GMP HACCP provisions. So the Bureau of Quarantine has improved its food sanitation audit system for inter-island ships by including in its traditional audit the GMP, a review of documents, so included na rin po yung HACCP. So, verification of HACCP implementation. So they are now identified as a GMP HACCP certification provider to specific sectors of the local food service industry on a national level. So under those food providers under the BOQ. Now, the Department of Agriculture through the NMIS or National Meat Inspection Service has also been implementing the mandatory application of HACCP program in all the licensed AAA meat establishments. So this has been going on since 2003. And in 2021, finally, we have successfully hurdled Japan's strict food safety and hygiene management standards. So in 2021, the Philippines can now export certified beef, Cara beef, pork, chevon, mutton, and their products or byproducts as of May 2021. So as of that time, there were at least 70 Philippine meat establishments. So this includes the slaughterhouses, mga meat cutting plants, poultry dressing plants, and cold storage facilities na merong AAA certification from the DA and MIS. And as of January 2023, the list is now up to 77 HACCP certified meat or AAA establishments out of a total of 438 establishments. Now to move on, the food processing industry in the Philippines accounts for a large portion of the industrial activity. And as discussed earlier by Ma'am Tonet or yesterday, there are barriers or there are certain hesitations when it comes to HACCP implementation because although HACCP awareness and application is relatively high among medium enterprises that produces export products, it is low among processors of domestic products. However, there are increasing number of plants and plant personnel that are becoming aware of HACCP. And with all that examples of implementing HACCP, and what can we gain from implementing HACCP? So it does not only help in producing safe food, it also saves your business money on the long run. It avoids you poisoning your customers, it increases your food safety standards, and it ensures compliance with the law. So these are just some of the benefits of implementing the HACCP system in your food production. So now, with the advantages of implementing HACCP system, how come na meron pa ring mga MSMEs natin that are still hesitating in the implementation? So in the study of TEVES entitled HACCP Certification Analysis of Philippine Small-Scale Food Manufacturing Companies, this was presented in Singapore in 2015. These are the common problems to HACCP implementation in small-scale food companies as identified by the Food and Agriculture Organization. So we have number one, the lack of hygienic practice as prerequisite programs. So these issues can all be addressed actually if the manufacturing company is already implementing good manufacturing practices. Now, second is the lack of awareness and expertise, which could be addressed with trainings, proper employee selection, and of course, a strong management commitment. Another is that the lack of proper HACCP training for the employees, the management itself. Food hygiene trainings is also found lacking, and the lack of external support, such as access to consultants and industry associations. Next, more barriers are human resource problems, which includes the cost of training of personnel, especially if you have a high turnover of personnel, papalit-palit yung ating mga empleyado. And then also behavioral problems are also factors, and financial constraints, which is a big factor if you have listened to yesterday's discussions. So this is one of the identified factors in HACCP implementation for small business owner. Another is the lack of commitment or the lack of government infrastructure support. And lastly, companies are not persuaded to implement HACCP because it is not a legal requirement as of now in the Philippines, unlike the license to operate and the certificate of product registration. So those are the hurdles to the implementation of HACCP. So HACCP is part of a bigger food safety management system, and all of these systems are founded, again, on the implementation of good manufacturing practices, good hygienic practices, your prerequisite program, sanitation procedure. So without this, at the lower level of the food safety system pyramid, the HACCP or further food safety management systems will not be possible. That is why we cannot emphasize enough that to start your food safety management system journey, your good manufacturing practices should be in place already. Implemented na po dapat sila, ginagawa consistently. So, speaking of prerequisite programs, so ano nga ba ito? So your prerequisite programs are the methods taken to ensure that your premises, your equipment, the transport vehicles, and the employees do not contribute to or become food safety hazards. So without these basic principles, sample is yung sanitation and pest control, a risk-based system such as HACCP will fail as they are the foundation in which HACCP is built upon. So prerequisite programs should be well established, fully operational, verified in order to facilitate the successful application and implementation of the HACCP system. Now, in conducting HACCP, these are the food safety hazards that we should be examining in our raw materials, in our process and products. So na-discuss na rin po ito kahapon, no? So I will not be further expounding on this. So ito po yung titingnan natin when we do hazard analysis. Ito po yung dapat na mga ma-identify natin na hazards. Next, we proceed to the steps in doing the HACCP. So there are 12 steps in the HACCP implementation. So these are, we have 5 preliminary steps followed by the 7 principles. So step 1 is to assemble the HACCP team and identify the scope. So this should be, the team should be composed of multidisciplinary personnel that is responsible for different activities and the operation. Example, representative from the production, from the maintenance, the quality control. Since the HACCP team is responsible for developing the HACCP plan. And if relevant expertise is not available in-house, pwede po tayong maghanap ng expert advice such as consultants or industry representatives. So the HACCP team will identify kung hanggang saan lang po ang coverage ng ating HACCP. And kung ano po yung applicable prerequisite programs na ating gagamitin to prevent the hazards identified. Second is that a full description of the product should be developed. This will help in identifying the hazards faced by our consumers. So the information should include all the ingredients, the processing methods, the packaging, shelf life. And if your organization produces many food items, the products can be grouped into categories. Also note that allergens should also be identified. So step 3 is to identify the intended product use and who will use it. So we will identify how it will be used. Does it need further cooking or is it ready to eat? Identify kung sino po yung pwedeng mag-consume ng ating product. The vulnerable groups, we should consider kung pwede ba siya sa mga matatanda na kulang na yung ngipin. Pwede ba siya sa mga infants, sa mga babies, or pwede ba siya for those immunocompromised individuals? And then, of course, consider din natin if the product will be unsafe to consume at any point. So, kailangan ba siyang i-refrigerate after getting the food, or okay lang siya na it will remain in room temperature? Also, consider safeguarding measures for anyone who might be at risk, like warning labels for allergens if, for example, it contains certain allergens like peanuts or eggs. Step 4 is that we will construct a flow diagram. So the flow diagram doesn't need to be an engineering drawing as long as it covers all the steps of the production. So the flow chart should at least include how the raw ingredients are received, paano sila sinostore, ang mga temperature controls na ginagamit natin at every point. Dapat ba merong frozen, merong room temperature or humidity, ganon. And then consider also any applicable rework in your production process. Now, for the next step, kailangan po natin i-verify or i-confirm kung tama po ba yung ating ginawang flow diagram. So we need to physically follow the steps written in the flow chart. We check that everything happens as it should on site. We will be talking with the people or the different workers on different shifts if napafollow ba talaga yung kinonstruct natin na flow diagram. So if not, if merong mga mali sa ating ginawang flowchart, hindi po siya yung actual na fina-follow, then we make the necessary changes. Now we come to the 6th step, which is also the first principle. Ito po yung hazard analysis. So dito na po magpapasok yung talk ni Sir Norley earlier about risk analysis, no? It will help also in our hazard analysis. Now, using the flowchart na ating ginawa, we make a list of every reasonably to occur hazard at each stage. So remember, the type of hazards are those physical, chemical, biological, and the allergens. So sila po yung ating hahanapin kung nasaan po ba sila or involved po ba sila sa mga steps natin sa production. And then we decide which hazard pose the most significant risk. Yung significant lang po yung risk, no? That needs to be controlled and consider the measures that we will use to control these identified hazards. And now for step 7 or principle 2, i-determine na po natin kung saan po yung critical control point. So the CCPs or critical control point are specific points in the food production process where control measures can be implemented to prevent or minimize these hazards. Now, the CCPs must be identified based on the hazard analysis. So, yun lang pong high risk or yung na-consider natin sa hazard analysis, yun lang po yung i-identify natin dito sa critical control points. So, yun lang po nag-show ng significant result as of the hazard analysis from the previous step. So, next is, this is the hazard decision tree. So, this is one of the tools that can be used in the determination or verification of your critical control points. Ito po yung natanggal sa Codex HACCP 2020 but it is still referred to or pwede pa rin po siyang gamitin na tool to determine your critical control point. So we can follow this. This is a series of questions which can determine at which point in the process needs more attention or is the critical point in your process. Another is, this was discussed by Sir Norley earlier, ito po yung risk assessment matrix that can also be used in the determination of critical control points. Now, the CCP decision tree and the risk matrix are just some of the tools that can be used in the HACCP process. So, other tools that can be used will include flowcharts, process maps. So, it will matter, no, on how you will proceed to your determination of your CCP. So, depende na po yun sa HACCP team. Depende po if you will engage a consultant on what is the best po na gagamitin na tool for your food production. Now, step 8 is establishing a critical limit. So, ang critical limit po natin is only applicable for those identified na critical control points. So, from this point onwards, only yung mga steps and control points identified na critical will be examined. So, ang critical limit natin, kailangang merong firm minimum or maximum limit. And if a critical control point is found to be operating outside of that critical limit, meron po tayong corrective actions na gagawin to bring it back into compliance. So, yung limit po natin or critical limit needs a specific control measure such as either we reduce the temperature, we increase the time, or reduce the time, and measurable po siya, such as temperature, time, and humidity. And then step 9 is yung monitoring natin ng ating critical control point. So the monitoring should accurately detect when the target levels are missed. So kung nag-exceed or nag-below po siya sa ating critical limit, kailangan po ma-detect agad ito ng ating monitoring system. So kailangan continuous ang ating monitoring system, accurate. We use mga devices na properly calibrated and replicable to your critical limit. So carried out din ito ang magmamonitor ng personnel na trained to use the calibrated equipment. And then step 10 is the establishment of a corrective action. So ito po yung mga actions or mga steps natin na gagawin when a particular control point is not under control. So pag nag-exceed na po yung critical limit or below critical limit, dapat meron po tayong corrective action na gagawin to bring back para yung food na ma-produce natin is still safe. So all the corrective action procedures dapat fully documented natin so that klarong-klaro po sa ating documentation, klarong-klaro po sa ating food production. So step 11 is the validation of the plan, which consists of making sure na lahat na element ng ating plan ay capable talaga siya in controlling all the significant hazards na na-identify natin. Ma-verify natin na effective yung ginawa nating plano, that we, using that plan, we are producing safe food. And then the verification activities are performed to ensure that your HACCP system functions as intended and will continue to operate effectively. Now for the last step, so at every step of the HACCP, accurate records must be made. So this will support the overall plan, verify that the controls are in place and are working effectively. And this will even act as an essential evidence of due diligence should it ever be needed. So if hindi po siya nakadocument, hindi po siya nangyari. That is why documentation is very important in HACCP implementation. Now what you will see next is an example of the HACCP template indicating the steps 8 to 12. So yung mga nakalagay natin na number at the top, they are corresponding to the specific steps that came up yung mga resulting na mga text natin or mga resulting na values. So this indicates that the CCPs, the potential hazards associated with that certain control point, the critical limits that should be met, yung mga monitoring procedure po natin as to who, what, when, and how it will be monitored, the corrective actions, the verification, and the records. So again, yung atin lang pong i-address dito are those hazards identified as significant in step 6 and the critical control point that is associated with that hazard. So sila lang po yung included in steps 8 to 12. I hope that it brought clarity to everyone, no? And now that we already know the steps to HACCP, and if we already have a HACCP plan, anong susunod? Well, as we say it, wala talagang forever. Since our HACCP plan is a live document, it would need regular updating. It would need changes, if ever that there were changes or there are certain factors that change in your food production, such as may changes in raw material, layout of your premises, equipment, your cleaning program. So we need to review our HACCP plan if there are changes to any of the items indicated in your screen. So let's come to one of the most critical factors now in the implementation of HACCP. Implementation of HACCP will of course entail cost. Now the cost of HACCP is associated with the initial analysis of the company and the current standards of their operation prior to the development and the implementation of the system. So some of the costs involved during implementation and maintenance of HACCP will include consultant fees if kulang po ang mga personnel natin or if we will hire out mga private consultants. Also, investment in new equipment if your existing equipment is not GMP compliant. So, importante talaga that GMP is already in place. As GMP, kailangan proper yung layout, proper yung ating equipment, trained ang mga personal and food hygiene. So malaki po talagang tulong ang GMP sa implementation ng HACCP. Also, staff training will cost you, or pwede rin po, the OSC offers free trainings. Now, other things is that structural changes to the plant. Importante po ito that your plant or your food processing facility is compliant to the layout required in the good manufacturing practices as presented by Sir Arthur yesterday. And now, operational costs will involve the record keeping since HACCP requires intensive record keeping kasi kung walang record, walang nangyari. Now, it will also incur testing, product testing costs, and so on. So the more established your good manufacturing practices and your prerequisite procedures are, the lesser the investment cost for you. So, and finally, here are the tips for small-scale businesses. First and foremost is a strong management commitment to implement HACCP. The drive should come from the management and cascaded to all employees. So yung management po talaga is the vital factor in implementing HACCP. Dapat decidido sila and they cascade this to the employees, to all the employees involved. And then we prioritize consumer safety. This is the main aim of HACCP actually. This is to promote safe food. And third is that serious and consistent implementation of your good manufacturing practices, your sanitation procedures, your PRPs or prerequisite procedures is required. Another is that we employ a good HACCP team. If may kulang pa sila ng knowledge, you train them, have them undergo trainings, or meron din po tayong resources on the internet. We just make sure that our resources are relevant and can be trusted. So we develop their capabilities through training. Another is when we hire out consultant, we make sure na yung consultant natin is an expert in the type or in the specific type of product that you produce so that valuable talaga yung input nila. And then start with one product muna first to gain experience. And of course, documentation is key, so we prepare the required documents. We should be always reminded and dapat always in mind that the objective of developing a HACCP system is safe food and not certification. Now, are you interested in implementing HACCP? So we can help. We can help you start. So the USC offers various assistance related to food safety. So you can just visit the nearest DOST office for your concerns relating to food safety. So we can help you start. So, and that is it for my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention this morning. And here are the references that I used. So you may take a screenshot if ever that it has your interest, in case you need more information. So, and that was HACCP in a nutshell. Now we will have the forum. So again, I would like to request for those sending in their questions to please also add your email addresses to the end of your questions so that in case we cannot read them as of this moment, we can address them at a later date and we will send you the answers through email because gusto talaga po namin ma-address po ang lahat ng questions na sinisend ninyo para po walang uuwing luhaan. So, for the questions, meron na po ba tayo? Okay, for a while. So for our first question, here we go. So how many personnel is ideal to create a HACCP team? So ilan ba talaga ang kailangan na team members for a HACCP team? So actually, there is no fixed number of persons to create the HACCP team. Pero the team should be kept at the manageable size appropriate to the kind of production or the complexity of your food operation. So dapat pag all the members should be responsive or manageable nyo na hindi siya masyadong marami na nahihirapan na kayo to have a quorum when you are calling a meeting. So this group of individuals, what is important is dapat the knowledge that they have is enough. Yung technical and operational knowledge nila in food production is enough so that the different stages of the HACCP plan and the continual maintenance of the HACCP plan is implemented. So I hope na-address po yung question natin. Okay, so I am also, okay, so we have further questions. So we have a question here. So wala po bang latest reference in the Philippines? This is from YouTube. From Miss Gladys Cepeda, wala po bang latest reference in the Philippines aside from RA 10611 FSA of 2013? So as of this moment, yan lang po yung meron po tayo na law, no, na referring to the HACCP implementation, if that is your question, ma'am. So we also have another question from Facebook. This is from Miss Belenda Upan. So ano po yung government agency that issues HACCP certification? How much does it cost? And can you give an estimate of how long it takes to obtain a certification? So ang HACCP kasi is not a regulatory requirement as of this time sa Philippines, unlike the FDA LTO and the, anong tawag doon? The product registration or the CPR. So wala pong government agency na nag-i-issue ng HACCP certification aside from, NMIS for the agriculture or sa meat processing or anong tawag doon, meat establishments po ng mga slaughterhouses, cutting plants, and storage plants for the meat. So industry specific po, and also sa BOQ po or the Bureau of Quarantine, so sila po nag-i-issue ng HACCP certification for those under their control, such as yung mga nagsiserve po ng food for the planes at saka sa mga barko po natin, inter-island vessels na nagbabiyahe within the Philippines. So for kung food manufacturer or food processors po, meron po tayong mga private na mga agencies or mga groups that does HACCP certification. So sa government, wala po yun. But yung part ng government is we can help you with the trainings and other consultancies if needed po, if available po yung expertise sa amin. As to the costing, we cannot give an estimated amount kasi depende po yun with your consultant na napili nyo because it will be private. And also, yung estimate kasi it will depend on ano yung level of implementation nyo na ng GMP, kung ano po yung level ng production nyo, gaano kalaki ang production, ano po yung scope ng HACCP system nyo. So the bigger the scope, the bigger your company, probably your consultant or your certifying body would ensure na mas malaki yung cost ng anong tawag doon, ng implementation or ng certification nyo po ng HACCP. So, another question is, wait, I am browsing. So, is GMP certification required ba before HACCP certification? So, short answer is no. However, long answer, in the Philippines, there is no specific requirement that a company must obtain a GMP certification before obtaining a HACCP certification. So while the GMP is, yung certification mismo is not a requirement for HACCP, it can help your business prepare for the HACCP process. Also, as I had previously discussed, GMP is the foundation of your HACCP. So many of the requirements of your good manufacturing practices are also important for HACCP, such as proper facility design, equipment maintenance, and personal hygiene. So it is not a requirement that your GMP be certified. Hindi po requirement na meron kayong certificate, but it needs to be in place. Kailangan meron kayong GMP para ma-certify po kayo na HACCP. So you can have them certified actually at the same time kasi meron na kayong established GMP. Bakit hindi nyo pa ipa-certify? So gawin ng legal yan. So that is on the GMP certification requirement. So hindi lang kailangan na may certificate pero required na meron na kayong GMP. Kasi kung wala po kayong GMP, hindi po kayo makaka-proceed to your HACCP. It is a requirement. It is a foundation. So, that is our allotted time for the Q&A portion. So we encourage you to please keep sending in your questions. Lagyan niyo po ng email addresses at the end of your questions so that we can address them later. Pag wala na pong time, we can send you the email. So rest assured, we will address all your questions later on. Okay? So I hope na-satisfied po tayo sa mga sagot natin, no? So that is for the forum regarding your HACCP implementation. So from the talk on risk assessment and HACCP, so we will be discussing next another or an emerging food quality standard, which some of you may have already heard about, which is halal. So this topic will gain us knowledge for what halal is for Muslims and non-Muslims. So for those who are interested to engage in halal business, this is your chance. So this topic is a first step to understand what halal is. So ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome our next speaker, Ms. Marichu Sinulinding. She has a degree in chemistry and is a halal lead auditor and SRS2 from the UST Region 12. Ma'am Marichu, the virtual floor is now yours.
Okay. Thank you, Ma'am Marie, for that kind introduction. Okay, let me start. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A pleasant morning to all the virtual participants of this webinar. As we have learned from yesterday's and today's preceding presentations on hazard analysis, critical control point, and the food safety risk, food safety prerequisite programs such as the current good manufacturing practices and the good hygiene practices must work effectively within a commodity system before the halal standard can be applied. Now, if these prerequisite programs are not operating successfully, then the introduction of halal will be complicated and impossible because food safety standards are always in tandem with halal standards. We cannot implement the halal standard without implementing first the food safety standards. And now, to learn more about halal, I will be presenting the halal awareness for food service and food manufacturers. Now, for my presentation outline, I will be discussing the halal terms and concepts, and then what is halal, what are the halal food general guidelines, then the sources of the halal food and its restrictions, the possible sources of najis, the halal food chain, then what are the halal requirements for premises, hotels, and establishments, then why halal industry, or why do we need to engage into halal business, and then I will also be presenting the halal certification bodies in the Philippines and examples of halal certified food and beverages, hotels, and restaurants here in the Philippines. Okay, so these are the terms now I will be discussing all throughout my presentation. So what is fatwa? Now, fatwa is a legal opinion concerning Islamic law issued by competent Muslim scholars. And halal are matters that are lawful and permitted in Islam based on Sharia law and fatwa. And halal slaughtering, it refers to an act of killing a live and halal animal by a Muslim through severance of trachea, esophagus, and both the carotid arteries and jugular veins of the animal using a sharp tool with the intention due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And haram, these are matters that are unlawful and prohibited in Islam based on Sharia and fatwa. Now, another term is halal ritual cleansing or sartu. It means cleansing something from severe najis, such as the dogs, pigs, and their descendants. Now, Sharia, it refers to Islamic law derived from the Holy Quran and the Sunnah or Hadith. That these are the traditions and teachings of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, Hadith is the authentic practice of the Prophet Muhammad, his sayings, his actions, habits, and approvals that explains in detail the application of the Quran principles. And of course, Quran, it is the holy book of Islam, and it contains the philosophy, the principles, and theories of Islamic laws, which are the work of Allah for the guidance of mankind. Now, what is the difference between halal and haram or non-halal? Now, halal is permitted or allowed or lawful by Sharia for Muslims. And haram is the opposite of halal, which means forbidden, unlawful, and not allowed under Sharia for Muslims. And then the examples of which are the consumption of pigs and its derivatives, and of course, intoxicants. Now, another Arabic term is the mashbu, shubahat or shubaha. It is an Arabic term that means things or actions that are doubtful and its status is not definitely known whether it is halal or haram. It is the gray area between halal and haram, which are doubtful, questionable, or suspected. Now, what are the examples of doubtful ingredients? The first example is the gelatin, and this can be because it can be sourced from plants, fish, or animals. Now, if the gelatin is sourced from plant or animal, if the gelatin is sourced from plant or fish, then it is halal. But if the source is from animals, then it is doubtful because it could be from halal animal or haram animals. Now, another example of a doubtful ingredient is the emulsifier or the E471 or the fatty acid. Familiar kayo nito yung sa mga ingredients. So it is doubtful because it can be sourced from haram or haram animals or halal animals not slaughtered in accordance with Sharia. Now, another example is the rennet, because it can be sourced from animal or microbial, and it is used in the cheese production. Animal rennet are the enzymes produced in the stomach of ruminant mammals, while microbial rennet is a coagulating agent that is based on the live organisms like molds, the yeast, or a fungi. And then another is the animal fats, can be sourced from haram animals or halal animals not slaughtered in halal way. And then the last thing is the artificial flavoring and coloring. Now, doubtful things should be avoided. Now, Muslims are required to avoid doubtful things. If we doubt the ingredients or the raw materials we are using, we should not use them. Kasi what if kung non-halal talagang ingredients na ginamit? So masasayang because we cannot continue for further processing or consume the product. Now, for example, bibili tayo ng ingredients like gelatin. We know that gelatin is a doubtful ingredient. So we need to check if halal certified ang product. Now, ask for a halal certificate from the supplier. Now, if they cannot provide them, much better we will not purchase that product and look for a product that has a certain halal status. Now, there are lots of halal certified products in the market. Now, receiving of the raw materials is a critical control point. We must ensure they are halal, not doubtful ingredients. Otherwise, we cannot continue the processing. Okay. Now, another halal concept is najis. Now, najis is an Arabic term which means matters that are impure according to Sharia and Fatwa. Now, there are three types of najis. The first type is the najis mugalaza or the severe najis. These are the dogs and the pigs, including any liquid and objects discharged from their orifices, descendants, and derivatives. Now, the second type of najis is the najis mukaffafa or the light najis. And this is the urine of a baby boy with age less than 2 years who has not consumed any food except his mother's milk. Now, the third type is the najis mutawasita or the medium najis. And these are the vomit, the pus, the blood, alcoholic drinks, carrion, liquid, and objects discharged from the orifices. Okay? Now, what is halal? Ano nga ba talaga ang halal? Ano bang ibig sabihin ng halal? Kapag nakikita ba natin sa labels ng mga halal products or sa mga food establishments, ang ibig ba sabihin nito is walang pork ingredients na ginamit sa mga products or sa mga menus? Okay. Halal under Islamic rule means what Allah legislates for Muslims as per the Holy Quran and the practices or the sunnah of the Honorable Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Now, keeping it simple to understand, it means safe for use or consumption and allowed by Sharia. And Sharia is the Islamic law or rules, the Sunnah and the Hadith of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the revelations on Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in relation to the beliefs, sentiments, and acts of the ordered, whether conclusive or presumptive. Now, halal is for all human beings. Now, halalan tayyiban was based on the chapter 2, verse 168 of the Holy Quran, the Surah Al-Baqarah, which states that, O ye people, eat of what is on earth, lawful, which means halalan, and good tayyiban, and do not follow the footsteps of Satan, for he is to you an avowed enemy. Now, halal is for all human beings because it is safe, healthy, quality-wise, pure, and clean. Now, what are the halal food general guidelines? Now, halal food covers foods and beverages and their ingredients permitted under Sharia or Fatwa and must fulfill the following conditions. Now, the first condition does not consist or contains any part of matter of an animal that is prohibited by Sharia and Fatwa for a Muslim to consume or has not been slaughtered in accordance with Sharia law and Fatwa. An example is bacon. It is non-halal because it is a pork derivative. Now, another example is the chicken. Chicken is halal, but if it is not slaughtered in a halal way, it becomes non-halal. Now, for the halal slaughtering requirements, I will be discussing them in the following slides. Now, for the second condition of halal food, it does not contain anything which is najis, no, according to Sharia and Fatwa. So, an example is the blood meal, no? Blood meal is used in the production of feeds for poultry and aquatic animals, and also used as fertilizers. Then, of course, another example is the pork blood stew or yung dinuguan. Kaya non-halal po ay yung dinuguan. Okay, so that another condition or third condition, it does not intoxicate according to Sharia and Fatwa. And examples, no, yung wines in fruitcakes, no, they use wines in fruitcakes, no, to prolong the shelf life. So, fruitcakes becomes non-halal. Now, also wines are also used for recipes and menus, no? So, all recipes or menus use wine as ingredients becomes non-halal. Now, the fourth condition of halal food is it does not contain any part of a human being or its yield which are not allowed by Sharia and Fatwa. So, example of this one is the L-cysteine from hair, which is used as a breath improver. And then another condition is it is not poisonous or hazardous to health. Example, no, is the pufferfish or in Tagalog yung butete. It has a toxin known as the tetrodotoxin, which is poisonous, so it becomes non-halal. But if you could remove the toxin, then it becomes halal. Then the sixth condition has not been prepared, processed, or manufactured using any instrument that is contaminated with najis according to Sharia and Fatwa. Now, halal food shall not be processed on equipment that was previously nagamit na natin, previously used in the manufacture of non-halal products, unless the equipment underwent a ritual cleansing, which I will be discussing later, in detail. And of course, the last condition, is has not in the course of preparing, processing, or storing been in contact with mix or in close proximity to any non-halal food. So hindi pwedeng nagmi-mix ang mga halal food and non-halal food during processing at during storage, as shown in the photo na nagmix na sa fridge. Okay, so now what are the requirements for halal slaughtering? Now, slaughtering of halal animals should be fully isolated from haram animals. Halal animals like the cows and the goats, yung mga chicken, should not be mixed with non-halal animals in a slaughterhouse. There should be a halal slaughterhouse and shall be performed, next requirement, it shall be performed by a Muslim slaughterman. And then the slaughtering must be done facing the Qibla. Qibla is the direction of prayer, for Muslims. And slaughtering must sever the trachea, the esophagus, the carotid arteries, and the jugular veins in one stroke to bring about an immediate and massive blood flow. And then last is we need to have a knife or blade must be very sharp. Now, why use very sharp knife? Because according to the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, when you slaughter in a good way. So every one of you should sharpen his knife and let the slaughtered animal die comfortably. Okay, now what are the sources of halal food and its restrictions? Okay, all animals, both land and aquatic, are halal except the swines, the dogs, the monkeys, fox, donkeys, cats, and elephants. Then another exemptions are the snakes and some reptiles. And then another is the carnivorous animals with claws and fangs. Examples dito yung mga lions, yung tigers, yung bears, wolf, and other similar animals. Now, another restrictions on sources of halal food are the birds of prey, such as yung eagles, the vultures, and other similar birds. And then yung mga pests, such as yung rats, insects, centipedes, scorpions, and other similar animals. Now, another restrictions are the animals that live both on land and water, like yung frogs, yung turtles, and crocodiles. And then all poisonous and hazardous aquatic animals, except when poison is removed, as I've already mentioned earlier. Examples yung pufferfish or ang budete in Tagalog. Now, contaminated animals are another exemption on the sources of halal food. Like, yung goat and cow being fed with liquor as depicted in the photos. So, kaya nga, according to the research, animals fed with liquor have a smooth meat. Yung example, yung mga wagyu meat. So, in the second photo naman are the aquatic animals which live in najis or intentionally and or continually fed with najis, yung mga non-halal feeds, because most of the commercially available feeds have blood meal, or bone meal from non-halal source. Now, another exemptions on the sources of halal food are the dead animals. Kaya bawal yung double dead or yung botcha. And then, of course, yung consumption of flowing blood from animals. Kaya nga, mentioned earlier, bawal po yung dinuguan. And then, animals slaughter dedicated to anyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is why those animals used for ritual offerings becomes non-halal. Now, another sources of halal food are the plants, microorganisms, and yung minerals. Now, all types of plant and plant products and their derivatives, yung microorganisms like yung lactobacillus in Yakult, which helps in the digestion. Then minerals and chemicals such as yung table salt and all kinds of water and beverages are halal, except those that are poisonous, intoxicating, and hazardous to health. Now, plants may contain toxins from pesticide residues. So, to remove them, they must be washed properly. Now, beverages like fruit juices may contain alcohol, which is haram. Now, in processing some beverages like in fruit juices, they use ethanol or ethyl alcohol to dissolve the flavorings or coloring, which is why the beverages require laboratory testing to determine the alcohol content and to check if the final product is within the maximum acceptable limit. Now, different countries have different acceptable limits on alcohol content. Now, for example, in Malaysia, 0.5% alcohol is the maximum acceptable limit in the final product. But for the naturally fermented foods, the maximum acceptable limit is only 1%. Well, in Indonesia, they use alcohol for during the processing, but it must be 0% alcohol in the final product, and only 1% is in the naturally fermented foods. So, if you want to export halal products, specifically beverages, you must adhere to the halal alcohol guidelines of the importing country. Now, another restrictions on sources of halal food are other unlawful things, such as yung alcoholic drinks and all forms of intoxicants and hazardous drinks. Now, why alcohol haram in Islam? Now, the reason for the prohibition of intoxicants in Islam is that they can alter or change the mind or cloud the mind and senses. Now, for practicing Muslims who perform their 5 times daily prayers, hindi pwede nalasing sila while praying kasi hindi na po nila maintindihan yung sinasabi po nila. Now, another unlawful things are all prohibited. Hallucinogenic drugs, substances like shabu, marijuana, opium, ecstasy, and other similar drugs. And of course, yung food additives derived from haram sources like yung lard, the E471, or fatty acids from pork. Now, another sources of halal food is the genetically modified organisms or the GMOs. Now, food and beverages containing products and or byproducts of genetically modified organisms or ingredients made by the use or manipulating of the genetic material of animals that are non-halal by Sharia and fatwa are not halal. Now, for example, sa first photo, the sheep is halal, but was genetically modified with a pig DNA. And the result is a sheep pig. So it becomes non-halal. Now, and the second photo naman is the chicken is halal, but it was genetically modified with a pig DNA. So the chicken becomes featherless wala na siyang balahibo, and also became non-halal. Now, genetic materials that are halal according to Sharia can be certified halal. This means that genetically modified products are halal as long as the sources from which they originate are halal. So example is the BT corn. The donor organism is a naturally occurring soil bacterium. So this is the Bacillus thuringiensis. And the gene of interest produces a protein that kills the European corn borer. So it is beneficial for the agricultural industry. Now, another example is a mayonnaise product. So nakalagay sa label ang statement na processed with genetic engineering and or partially produced with genetic engineering in the case naman ng mga M&M na chocolate candies. Now, what are the possible sources of najis? Now, again, najis an Arabic term which means filth or unclean. Now, najis as per Islamic law, this means that yung mga dogs, pigs, and their descendants or their derivatives. So, example, yung sa pork, sausages, and then yung mga dinuguan. And then halal food again, that is contaminated and comes into contact, with matters that are non-halal. So examples nito yung mga food displayed in the fast food chains or mga karinderias. Halal foods are mixed up with non-halal foods like my pork adobo, my butter chicken. So contaminated na yung chicken with pork adobo. So it becomes non-halal. Now again, any liquid and objects discharged from the orifices of human beings or animals such as yung urine, blood, vomit, or yung pus, excrement, and yung placenta is also najis. And another, yung carrion or halal animals that are not slaughtered according to Sharia law and fatwa, except for aquatic animals and certain insects. And then, of course, yung khamr or liquor, and food or beverages or items which contain or mix with a khamr or liquor. Now, these are the pig and its derivatives. So, nakita po natin yung pork hair. Pork hair used as zesty for bread improver. Ginagamit din siya for toothbrush, at saka sa flavor. And then, sa pork innards naman, yung intestine, they are used as sausage casing, And then yung pancreas ng pork are used as insulin, for diabetic person, ginagamit ng insulin. And then yung enzyme, are used as rennet, for the cheese production. Na pork blood naman are used, as fermentation media, used sa medicines, sausage and microbial products. And then yung pork bones naman are used as activated carbon for oil refinery, and sa water filtration. And then of course, yung pork meat are used as flavoring, seasoning, powder, yung sa bacon, pasta, burger, and meat flesh. And then yung pork fat or yung lard are used as shortening, in bakery products, in sa mga biscuits, And it is also used, ang pork fat as texturizers, in cosmetics like sa mga lipsticks, Then yung broth naman, broth are used as flavor, and then yung soup at saka seasoning. Now, the fat derivatives are used in glycerin, no, or monodiglyceride, as emulsifier, yung creamer, then yung sa mga margarine, and toothpaste. And then another, yung sa pork skin naman, they are used as yung sa gelatin, no? That is why na-discuss ko earlier, gelatin is a mashbu or a doubtful ingredient kasi it can be sourced from pork skin. Now, gelatin made from pork skin can also be used for the production of ice cream, marshmallows, yogurt, soft candies, jellies, and capsules. Now, collagen, no, from pork skin is also used in sausage casing. Now, pork skin, no, can also be used as yung mga leather bags, belts, and other products. So, ang dami-daming gamit, no, ng pork, no? Okay? Now, what is halal food chain? Okay. Now, the application of halal system to food shall cover from farm to plate. That essence is the whole coverage of food halal quality assurance to promote hygiene and good health as prescribed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, the halal supply chain includes stages from procurement and preparation of genuine halal ingredients to the manufacturing and delivery of final products to customers. And this includes the every step from the initial production to the final consumption or from farm to plate. Now, it starts from the halal farm, no? The source of raw materials must come from halal farm, which means na yung fertilizers used are from halal sources like yung manures, no, that's used as fertilizers, no, should be from halal animals. And then, next is the implementation of food safety standards and its prerequisite programs is a must before implementation of halal standard. And of course, the use of halal ingredients because we could not process halal products without ensuring that our ingredients or raw materials are halal. Now, the halal, on the halal processing area naman and storage, no, where the utensils, yung equipment and facilities are dedicated only for halal food production, dedicated, no? And then for the halal logistics naman, there must be a dedicated vehicles for the transport of halal food products. And then for the display section must also be dedicated to halal food, no, sa mga retail stores. And of course, we can serve the halal food on our plate. Okay. Now, for the raw materials, ingredients, and processing aids, we must ensure that the sources are halal and safe. Now, this is the critical control point in the halal food processing. So, once the ingredients are not halal, then we cannot proceed with the processing. And of course, no, the raw materials, ingredients that are sourced from animals shall have a valid halal certificate. Okay, next. Now, for the sources of imported animal-based raw materials must have a recognized halal certification, no, from the origin of the country. And then the non-halal raw materials or ingredients are not allowed to be stored, no, in the halal premises. So, di na pwedeng magdadala ng mga non-halal materials like yung pork and its derivatives and intoxicants, no? Once halal certified ng ating premises. Say for example, no, one of the food workers, no, food worker magdadala ng alak at ilalagay niya sa fridge. So hindi na pwede na ilagay sa fridge ang alak once na halal certified ng ating premises to avoid cross-contamination. Okay? Now, okay? Now, during the preparation, handling, processing, packaging, storage, or transfer of products, they shall be in compliance with requirements by Sharia and remain clean, as well as comply with the good manufacturing practices, the good hygiene practices, the hazard analysis critical control point, and the food safety system certification as may be applicable. So as I've mentioned earlier, no, food safety standards must be implemented before we can implement halal standards. Okay? Okay, now again on the halal processing, no mixing between raw materials, products with non-halal material sources or those with unclean halal status. So as shown on the photo, while preparing foods, raw materials shall not be mixed with non-halal meat and uncertain halal status. So hindi pwedeng nagme-mix ang mga non-halal and halal ingredients while preparing yung halal food. Now, for the logistics naman, it shall be dedicated for halal products only. So, as shown on the photos, yung warehouse and then transportation vehicles must only be dedicated to halal products. So, a ritual cleansing, must be done, in case of an earlier, or previously nagamit siya sa non-halal or unknown shipment. So, cleaning and sanitation according to prevailing hygiene standards must be done for bulk tanker, container, and transport vehicles before use. And of course, yung mga drivers must also observe good hygiene practices and no bringing of personal belongings that are non-halal products like yung pork or your liquor to avoid contamination. Okay? Now, for use of equipment, utensils, and other tools for processing made from haram animals is not allowed. So there are some brushes made of animal hair, used in sa production ng mga pastries. So avoid this kind of brush. Instead, better use yung mga rubber brushes. Okay? Now, question, could we convert non-halal or haram processing lines to halal processing line? So the answer is yes. The processing lines used for haram and those exposed to najis can be converted to halal production lines by washing and ritual cleansing in conformity with Islamic law. Now, take note, conversion shall only be done once lang po. So this procedure shall be supervised and verified by the accredited halal certifying body. Now, upon conversion, the line shall be operated for halal food only. Now, repetition in converting the line to najis al-mughalasa. Najis al-mughalasa is the severe najis, I was mentioned earlier. And back to the halal line shall not be permitted, hindi na pwede. Example, assuming na convert na natin ang haram processing line to halal processing line by washing and ritual cleansing. Then we will produce this week, say for example, corned beef. And then the following week, we want to produce pork and beans in the same processing line. Ay hindi na pwede. Hindi na pwede mag-sertu or ritual cleansing at mag-process na naman tayo ng corned beef. Kasi conversion can only be done once and repetition in converting the haram processing line back to halal processing line is not allowed. So, in case na ginamit uli ang mga equipment na ritually cleansed na in the production of haram products, we cannot use it to produce halal products. Otherwise, bibili na po tayo ng bagong equipment for the halal processing. Okay? Now, for the packaging and labeling naman, the Philippine National Halal Certification Scheme 2018 requirements on packaging and labeling are the following. So, first requirement is the product name. Dapat nakastate yung product name. And then second is yung the halal logo issued by the accredited halal certification body or the Philippine Halal logo for the export market. Take note, hindi pwedeng halal logo na downloaded lang sa internet ang gagamitin sa label natin. It should be the halal logo of the halal certification body that certified our products. And then next is requirement is the net content shall be stated in metric measurements or in SI units. And then the name and address of the manufacturer, importer, and or distributor and its trademark. And of course, yung complete list of ingredients. And then yung lot identification numbers, the expiration date, the food allergen information, then nutrition facts, then included din yung storage condition and direction and instruction for use, then the country of origin. Now, the difference between the Philippine National Halal Certification Scheme requirement and the DOH Administrative Order 2014-0030, or otherwise known as the revised rules and regulations governing the labeling of prepackaged foods is the inclusion of the halal logo and the country of origin. Okay? Now, for the labeling and advertising, no, shall not contravene the principles of Sharia. So, example is the indecent photos, no, as shown in the label, no, yung mga sexy photos, no, that is contradicting to the principles of Sharia, so it is not allowed. So, of course, no such thing as halal certified pork, no, or halal bacon, because it is a derivative of pork. And of course, no such thing as halal beer, because it is an intoxicant. Okay. Now, what are the halal requirements for premises, hotels, and establishments? Now, first photo no is first is the compound shall be fenced no or have a control mechanism to prevent pets or wild animals from entering or remaining in the factory, production, and dining area, among others. No, and then pets, of course, are not allowed inside the premises. So another requirement is any hazardous materials and does not result in side effects no to the products produced. So as shown no in the photo no na nakikita po natin sa pictures na ang price no are wrapped with newspaper. So yung mga toxins from the inks or text from the newspaper no will migrate to sa food, so it becomes non-halal. Now additional requirements for food premises and establishments. It shall have an effective control system from contamination of animal rearing centers, yung storage plants, and premises that process no non-halal materials. And of course, yung mga, kaya nga yung mga commercial piggery should be at least 1,000 meters, no? And the backyard piggery shall be at least 500 meters away, no, from the premises or sa establishments. Okay, next. Okay. Now, why halal industry, or why do we need to engage in halal business? Okay. Now, halal from the religious point of view is an obligation that every Muslim must fulfill. Now, while on a business point of view, it is an excellent business opportunity and lucrative market for both domestic and international trade. Okay, so we define the halal industry. The halal industry is the latest trend in the world market because Muslims and non-Muslims producers go into halal. And the market size increases at 20% per year with a value of $560 billion a year. And the sectors covered are the finance, the travel and tourism, service and logistics, the pharmaceuticals and drugs, cosmetics, animal feeds, and food. Now, Philippine halal tourism needs to catch up because we are lagging behind our neighboring countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, and other Asian countries due to the scarcity of halal certified establishments. Of course, the global Muslim population is about 2.8 billion, at 1.84% growth rate, spending 16.6% of the global food expenditures. And of course, the food sector is essential in human life. And when we say it is halal food, it is safe, hygienic, with quality, and a wholesome product. Okay? Now, what are the benefits of halal certification and compliance? Ano nga ba yung benepisyo ng pag magkaroon tayo ng halal certification? Now, for Muslims, it is an obedience to the divine command. Now, for non-Muslims, it is an assurance of quality, safety, and hygiene. Now, for the industry, it is an acceptance in the global halal market because it will attract both Muslim and non-Muslim consumers. Now, of course, my product confidence, so assurance for Muslim consumers that the products are confirmed halal according to Sharia law, and then the hygiene and the sanitation of the premise is in the best condition when the manufacturer produces the products. And of course, it is recognized by authority, legal, like the FDA, the DA, and other regulatory bodies. Now, of course, it has a competitive advantage to competitors because it can boost a company's reputation because they comply with the standard with high market demand, thus generating more revenues, which means an increase in market value both domestically and globally, and increases the business opportunity with a global market value of $1.3 trillion. Okay. Now, who are the halal certification bodies in the Philippines? Okay. Now, there are 8 halal certification bodies here in the Philippines, now accredited by the National Commission on Muslim Filipinos, or the NCMF. Now, the HCBs, or the halal certification bodies that are accredited by the NCMF, are those that certify products that can be sold in the local market. Take note that the logos ng mga accredited halal certification bodies as shown in the screen ang gagamitin sa mga labels ng mga halal certified products, and not the logos, as I've mentioned, na downloaded lang sa internet. Okay? Okay. Now, there are 2 halal certifying bodies, certifying bodies naman in the Philippines, accredited naman by the Philippine Accreditation Bureau, or PAB. These are the Prime Certification Inspection Asia Pacific Incorporated, or PRIME, and the International Halal Certification Center Incorporated. Now, PAB is the accreditation body for global HCBs, halal certification bodies. Now, the HCBs that PAB accredits are those that can certify products for export market. The Philippine halal logo shall be used on products certified for export as halal by the PAB accredited HCBs. Now, the Philippine halal logo is affixed together with the HCB certification mark if necessary, and it is subject to the rules of the importing country. Okay, so examples of halal certified food and beverages, hotels and restaurants here in the Philippines. Okay, so as shown on your screen, are the examples of halal food and beverages in the Philippines. Okay, and then these are the examples naman of halal certified hotels and restaurants in the Philippines. So in Marco Polo, Lusitani in Manila, and Marriott Manila. Okay. Now, for more information on halal training, consultancy services, and halal verification laboratory, please get in touch with UST 12. So you may address your concern to our Regional Director, Engineer Sammy P. Malawan Sese, Philippine National Halal Laboratory and Science Center, Barangay Paraiso, Coronadal City. As shown on your screen are our website, yung Facebook page, and email address. So you may have your screenshot po para if you have any concerns po on halal. Okay. Now, these are the references used in my presentation. May also screenshot if you want to learn more about halal. Okay, so I will end my presentation with the UST Halal S&T program tagline: Halal is not just for Muslims, but for everyone. Now, Jazakallah khairan for your attention, and that ends my presentation. Back to you, Ma'am Marie.
So thank you very much, Ma'am Marichu, for that very, very informative discussion on halal. So I am reading now the questions in your in the Facebook comments and YouTube. So it's very overwhelming. Na marami po tayong questions. So it just goes to show na interested din po kayo dito sa mga topics na aming pinipresent. So thank you very much. And we will be trying our best to address all of them. But yun po, reminder for those still sending in their questions, please indicate your emails. Also, para if hindi po namin siya ma-answer as of this time, we will be addressing them through email. Send po namin sa inyo yung sagot para walang uuwing luhaan. So, now start in sending your questions. So, let's give a short time for Mama Richuno to get a breathing space muna. Kasi, we will be having a game muna so that Mama Richu will have time in examining your questions. So start sending in your questions. We will be waiting for them. So before that, before the Q&A, we will be having a game. So alam ko, isa rin po ito sa ating hinihintay every segment ng ating webinar sessions, no? So we will be having a game, same as yesterday, if andito po kayo yesterday. So this will be through Kahoot. This is a short quiz to test out your knowledge on the previous 3 lectures. So Ma'am Reina will be flashing on the screen our game for this morning. So please get another device. Mula pong audio, ma'am. Okay, so get another device connected to the internet, preferably your cell phone. So we have prizes for the winner. So the game pin is 6600918. Again, it's 660-0918. Okay, so aside from the accuracy of the answer, this team will also rate how fast you respond. So the faster your answer is, the higher your score would be. And don't forget, since meron po kaming pa-prize after this, if you are the winner, do not forget to take a screenshot of your podium win. Send it to us with your name and your GCash number. Send it to the account of Miss Reyna Elida. So ipopost ito sa Facebook and in our YouTube so that makasend po kayo ng inyong winning moment. So to update, nabigyan na po namin ng prizes yung mga winners yesterday. So keep them coming. We have a total. So 400 lang po yung ating available slots for this Kahoot. So register na po tayo. This is first come, first serve. So a few moments na lang. We have a total of 150, 51. So I guess enough na po siguro ito. Ma'am Reyna. Okay. So ready, our first question for this morning session. Question 1. HACCP is not red, science-based, orange, systematic, blue, 100% guarantee of food safety, green, focused on prevention. So type in or click in your answers now. Okay, so we have 91 correct answers. HACCP is not 100% guarantee of food safety. So let's see who are at the top of the podium. Ito po, si Wodas. Siya po yung nakauna at as of this time. So for the rest, habol-habol po. For our second question, so what is the latest version of Codex HACCP? So is it red 2022, orange 2020, blue 1969, green 2003? So anong taon po yung latest version ng Codex HACCP? Nasa lecture ko po ito kanina. Okay, so that's it. We have 94 who got the correct answer. So it is 2020. So let's see who is at the top of the podium. Ay, hindi siya nag-show. Okay, so third question na pala. So what is halal? So halal is what? Red, lawful, orange, doubtful, blue, prohibited, green, wholesome. So ano po yung halal? Okay, end of question 3. We have 118 who got the correct answer. So congratulations sa inyo. Halal is lawful. So for our podium, nangunguna pa rin po si Wodas, followed by molecules, and is that LI or LL? So habol-habol po. Next question is number 4. What is masbu? So is it red, doubtful, orange, lawful, blue, prohibited, green, wholesome? So ano po yung masbu? Kaka-discuss lang po ito ni Ma'am Maritsu. We have 8 seconds to go. 5, 4, 3, 2, and that's it. So we have 110 who got the correct answer. So masbu is doubtful. Yun po, doubtful ang masbu. So again, hindi pa rin natitinag po si Wodas, followed by Elaine, Ann, Harry, and Clark. So yun, bawi po. Meron pa po tayong other sets of questions. Question 5, food safety risk analysis. Components pa ito ng food safety risk analysis. Except red, risk management. Orange, risk communication. Blue, risk assessment. Green, risk identification. So all are food safety risk analysis components except that is for our fifth question. So only 80 got the correct answer. So lahat po ay risk analysis. Ay, 49 lang pala. So risk identification is not part of food safety risk analysis. So 49 lang po yung nakakuha. Bawi-bawi po next time. So still leading pa rin si Wudas, followed by Elaine and Kay. Next question. Number 6. What is the interactive exchange of information between risk analysis process? So is it red, risk analysis, orange, risk communication, blue, risk assessment, green, risk management? So may clue na po sa picture natin, kung ano po yung sagot. So that is it. So ano po yung interactive exchange of information? It is risk communication. So congratulations, 128 po ang nakasagot ng tamang answer. So, sino po ang nangunguna? Again, hindi po natitinag si Wudas. We also have Elaine and Kay on the second and third place. So, pwede pa rin pong humabol. Meron pa tayong one more question for this round. So, how many times can conversion from non-halal processing line to halal processing be done? Is it red, not allowed? Orange, once. Blue, twice. Green, thrice. So, ilang beses ba pwedeng i-convert? Or pwede bang ma-convert ang non-halal processing line to a halal processing line? So, inulit po ito ni Ma'am Marichu kanina po if you were listening. And ayun na nga, we have 107 who got the correct answer. So, the non-halal processing line can only be converted once to a halal processing line. So, once lang po, hindi po inuulit-ulit. So, 107 correct answers. Thank you. And for our podium winners, here they are. So, in the third place, we have Kay. Second place, we have Elaine. And for the third place, congratulations. Meron pa bang iba? Leading since question 2, we have Wudas. So do not forget to take a screenshot of your podium win using your devices po and send it to us with your name and your GCash number so that mabigay po namin yung deserve niyo po na prize for participating in this game session. So send it to the account of Miss Reina, R-A-I-N-A, Elida. And also before we proceed to the Q&A portion, a reminder for those requesting for a copy of the presentations, please send us an email through REG. Review ko, REG. So pwede po, for those who need the copy of the presentation po, ipopost po namin sa Facebook ang email kung saan nyo po pwede mas-send ang ating request for a copy of the PowerPoints. So, ibalik ko po later. And now, we proceed to the open forum for the session on halal. So, Ma'am Marichu, are we ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, yes, please email your request po for the copy of the presentation to regpwwebinar@gmail.com. So that's it. And also, we are very much grateful that we have here with us the Vice President for External Affairs of PWU, who graced us with his presence despite his very busy schedule. So thank you very much po, Mr. Alfredo Reyes, for being with us this morning. So it is with great honor that you have graced us in this event. So we have here the VP for External Affairs of PWU. Thank you, sir. So now we go on to the open forum for the first question for Ma'am Maritzu. So ma'am, for the halal awareness, so we have here for the first question, can a company use a halal logo on its production without actually being halal certified? Ma'am Maritzu?
As I've explained this earlier, definitely no, they cannot use any halal logo po pag halal logo if they are not halal certified. Pero once na halal certified na sila, they can use the halal logo of the halal certification body na nag-certify po sa kanila, no? Like yung na-present po earlier na mga halal certification bodies na accredited po ng NCMF or ng Philippine Accreditation Bureau.
Okay, so I hope that is clear that we will only use the halal logo if we are halal certified by a, of course, recognized halal certification body. So yan po. And then, with regards to the processing lines po, Ma'am Maritzu, we also have another question regarding the conversion po of the halal processing line. So, can you give more inputs po? Although na-raise na rin po ito sa Kahoot kanina. So yes po, proceed Ma'am Maritzu.
Okay. Yes, ma'am, as I have kanina in-emphasize natin na we can convert yung processing lines used for haram and those na exposed to najis, yung severe najis, pwede natin i-convert into halal production lines, but yun na nga sinasabi natin na shall be washed, ritually cleansed, or yung isertu natin as required by Islamic law. But take note that the conversion, yung kanina na rin na sagot, marami rin nakasagot ng mabuti na yung conversion can only be done once, from the haram processing line to be converted into halal processing line.
So ayun po, I hope everything is clear that once you converted your non-halal processing line to a halal processing line, there is no turning back. Dapat po maintain po siya na halal processing line. Unless, matanggalan, gusto niyo po or it's okay with you to matanggal na po yung halal certification. So once lang po allowed ang conversion. So another interesting questions, Ma'am Maritzu. Can haram become halal? This is from our YouTube viewer, si Sir Wudas Reclo. Kung tama po ba yung pagkakabasa ko, siya rin yata yung leading natin na sa Kahoot kanina. So congratulations, sir. So for your question, can haram become halal through cleansing? Example po is yung facility na dati merong masbu at haram na pinoprocess din, nag-undergo ng cleansing then nagkahalal. So I think related to sa previous question.
Opo. Yun na nga po yung in-explain natin earlier na pwede po siya ma-convert, pwedeng yung haram processing line can be converted into halal processing line. Tama po yung sabi din po ni sir na or si Sir Wuda or Ma'am Wuda
Yes,
na pwede po siya na ma-convert using po na undergoing po yung SER2 or yung ritual cleansing, halal ritual cleansing po.
So, it's overwhelming. Marami po talagang questions about halal. So, medyo matatagalan po tayo dito, Ma'am Maritzu. And it's very good kasi maraming interested about this topic. Yes po. So, thank you very much. We really appreciate you sending out your questions. So, next question, Ma'am. Is it true ba that a certain food flavor enhancer is not accepted sa halal?
Pwede naman po siya once po na kung certified halal. Pero nga kung doubtful tayo, so better na hindi na lang po natin gagamitin. As yung kanina po na-explain ko rin na pag doubtful tayo, mas better na hindi na lang po natin gamitin or iwasan na lang po natin gamitin. Anyway, madami naman pong mga other halal na yung mga certain halal status po ang gamitin natin ng mga ingredients. Pag uncertain po tayo doon na, say for example, yung ingredient na yun, hindi natin sure, doubtful tayo, so wag na lang po natin gamitin. Iwasan na lang po natin na gamitin po.
So that's it po, no? So just the same sa concept po ng food safety, if we are in doubt of a certain food product, we throw it out. So
Yes.
kahit kanong konti na doubt, we do not risk that our food be contaminated with anything that is harmful or anything, kung sa kahalal concept, anything that could be haram. So hindi po natin yun willing na i-take na risk. Okay? So another question is from YouTube. Okay, this is from YouTube, from Sir Giovanni Lim. So can we just wash the meat that is considered to be halal that is accidentally mixed with non-halal products like a chicken wrap in plastic yet mixed with pork meat wrapped also in plastic during grocery? So pwede po ba yun, Ma'am Maritzu?
Sir, yun na nga po, no, na-explain din po natin na once po na nag-mix up na siya, that is why po, di ba, sa halal po dapat yung mga retail, sa retail store, dapat dedicated lang po sa halal food. Hindi po pwedeng nagme-mix kasi pwede na po siya, contaminated na din po siya.
Okay. So thank you, Ma'am Maritzu. So mixing po of any non-halal products or any haram is not allowed po. So, another question from our Facebook viewer, Ms. Salvacion Garcetorena. So, ang GMO crop po ba is accepted sa Islam or pwedeng maging halal? I think this was discussed in your earlier
Opo.
slides.
Opo. So, yung as I have presented din po, no, na pag halal ang source, it can be certified halal for the GMO. Pero pag ang source of the genetic material is from non-halal source like yung pork DNA, hindi na po siya magiging halal. It cannot be certified halal. Pag halal ang source, it can be certified halal. As yung kanina noon, example ko yung sa BT corn. But yung pag ang source is not from non-halal, like yung mga pork na DNA, hindi na po siya pwede magiging halal. It is already haram. Hindi po siya ma-certify halal.
Okay, so I hope that answers your question, ma'am. So another question, Ma'am Marichu, from our Facebook viewer, JMML. So meron ba tayong guidelines on how to classify najis? So what are other examples of light najis? So this was also presented earlier, but for further clarifications, Ma'am Marichu?
Yes, for the light najis, ang nandun lang po talaga is yung sa urine of a baby boy, no, less than 2 years, na ang na-consume lang niya is yung from his mother's milk. So, for example, yung bata or mag-exceed na siya ng 2 years old, mako-consider na din po siya na medium najis.
Okay, so
Light najis
thank you.
lang siya pag below 2 years old.
Okay, so pag below 2 years old, light lang po.
Opo.
Okay, another question from Sir John Paul Pahe. Yung cigarettes ba at vape, haram po ba sila?
May mga fatwa, no, yung sabi natin, explain natin kanina, ang fatwa, no, is yung mga excuse me, it's a legal opinion, no, na ng mga competent Muslim scholars. So may mga fatwa na rin po na sinasabi na yung mga vape or yung mga cigarettes, no, are non-halal or haram. Kasi nga po, once po na nakakasira na sa health natin, it's considered haram na po.
Okay, so thank you very much, ma'am. So meron pa pong another question. I hope you are still okay, Ma'am Maritzu. Laban lang tayo.
No
Okay,
problem.
so this would be a great opportunity po kasi to raise awareness about halal also. So we appreciate your curiosity. So this is again from Wudas, no, from YouTube. So does it mean kailangan din na yung logistics company ay may halal certified? Or ano ba talaga yung sinicertify dito sa halal? Kasi if along the food chain, iba-iba po ba ang certification ng halal?
Ang halal certificate po pag sa halal is from yung di ba po from receiving to the distribution. So kasama na po doon dapat yung sa logistics. So as I've mentioned earlier din po, no, na say for example, pwede rin naman natin na yung sa logistics na gamit siya previously, no, na may shipment ng mga non-halal products, isa-serto natin. Pero yun nga po, di ba, once nga lang po, pwede mag-serto. So from the receiving all throughout sa distribution po ang pag-certify po na halal. Hindi lang po sa isang process lang.
Okay, so thank you, ma'am. So another question. This is from YouTube again, Sir Vince Botona. So since ang grapes is a raw material in the production of wine, which is an intoxicant, so considered ba ang grapes na haram or not?
Hindi po siya, ang grapes is a plant, di ba? Plant po siya. So under po the PNS or the halal standard, plants and all plants and plant products are halal, no? Pero pag maging intoxicant na siya, like na-convert na siya into wine, so yun ang haram, yung wine na. But the grape itself, it's a fruit, no? Plant po siya, so hindi po siya, halal po siya.
Okay, so the fruit itself is halal, pero pag nag-undergo na siya ng process ng fermentation, tama po ba, Ma'am
Maging wine
Maritzu?
na siya, maging wine.
Yes, and naging wine, doon na
Yun na
po
po yun.
tayo nagkakaroon ng intoxication. So,
Opo.
yun na po yung haram. But the fruit itself, wala pong kasalanan ang grapes. So, ganun po. Okay? So, next question, Ma'am Maritzu, from YouTube by Ma'am Joy T. Asis. As a drinking water manufacturer, kailangan po ba din silang maging halal certified or meron bang halal certification for drinking water?
Yes po, kailangan din po siya mag-undergo ng halal certification kasi ang tine-check po natin doon, no, yung na-present ko niyo sa mga pig and pig derivatives, di ba, ginagamit din po siya yung sa bone meal, ginagamit siya as yung sa bones, ginagamit as activated carbon, no, for the ginagamit sa mga water filtration. Hindi lang po sa water filtration, pati din po din sa mga refinery ng oil. Yung ginagamit kasi siya yung pig bone, no, possible, no, na yung ginamit na activated carbon is from pig bone. Kaya po, chine-check po natin. Kailangan po siya na mag-undergo pa rin po ng halal.
Halal certification. Okay, so hindi po exempted yung drinking water manufacturers po for halal certification. So if gusto niyo po magpa-certify, then you can. So another question is from Facebook, Sir Hero by Sir Hero Galamgam. Familiar po ito si Sir. So if a firm is going to venture in halal food production, ilang Muslim workers po ba ang needed and who will do the CERTO if mag-convert sa non-halal to halal food production at what will be used in doing the CERTO sa planta?
Okay, thank you, Sir Hero, no? Mukhang familiar na.
Kilala natin, ma'am.
Opo. So yung first question ni Sir Hero, kung ilan, no, na yung Muslim employees.
Workers.
So,
Yes,
workers.
po.
So, say for example po sa isang production, meron silang, ang magdedetermine po kasi niyan is the halal certification body, kung ilan po talaga yung need. Say for example, there are 3 batches, no, na sa 24 hours yung operation, there are 3 batches. So, dapat for every batch, meron po talaga Muslim po na employee na nandoon. So, ang magde-determine po nun is the halal certification body. Now, for the second question, ma'am, yung sa sino?
Sino po yung magagawa po ng CERTO if we convert a non-halal to a halal processing?
Okay.
At ano po yung gagamitin po daw doing the CERTO sa planta?
Okay. Ang gagamitin, no, na for the CERTO is yung sa ritual cleansing, no, is yung water lang naman siya. May process po nun na hindi ko lang pero meron pong process for the CERTO. And then ang magpa-perform po nun is pwede naman po yung mga like yung pwede tayo mag-request, no, yung sa Muslim community na yung alam po nila kung paano gagawin ang CERTO, which is dapat is with the presence din po ng halal certification body to ensure po na talagang nagawa po yung pagse-CERTO.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ayan, I hope na na-answer po yung questions po, no? So we have another question. Hindi po natin ito i-ignore na question. This is from Zoom by Prof. Lin. So, Ma'am Maritzu, may I know po ba or gusto po malaman ni Ma'am Lin if taking your example where the processing is for halal corned beef and be used as ingredient for the beans, okay po ba that the processing area for corned beef be a processing area for bean and corned beef?
Kung halal naman po talaga yung ipaprocess, ma'am, thank you, Ma'am Lynn, for that question. Ma'am, kung pareho lang naman po na halal na products yung ipoproduce nila on the same processing line, pwede naman po siya na gagamitin yon. I mean, di ba, ang question is kung pwede bang gamitin din, no, for the processing pa rin? yung equipment. So kung yung corned beef, ma'am, yung corned beef no nasa processing line tas gagamitin pa rin for the ano yung isang ma'am na product?
Beans.
Beans lang siya. Basta for as long ma'am na yung gagamitin is halal ingredients din po at saka halal processing line, pwede naman po yun. Kasi yun nga, assuming po na talagang halal na po yung ating processing line. Pwede naman po. Except no, kung gusto mo na talaga na gagamitin na for mag-produce ng non-halal products, so magko-convert ka na talaga at hindi na pwede na ayun na nga, irreversible na po kasi siya na gagamitin po ulit into halal processing line.
So, okay. So, last question po ito for halal and meron pa rin po kasing unanswered questions sa risk analysis and hazard, so we will address them. And if we have time, balik po ulit tayo sa halal since marami questions. So, last question for halal para din po makapagpahinga po si Mama Richo at makainom ng tubig. So, this is from YouTube. Mama Richo, need ba talaga, if we will undergo a halal certification, need po ba talaga na may worker po tayo on-site na Muslim?
Yes po, as per requirement po ng Philippine National Standard, requirement po talaga na merong Muslim employee po.
So dapat po
Yes,
talaga
sir.
employee
Yes.
siya, hindi po pwede
Opo.
na part-time or consultant.
Opo, as yung kanina po na-mention ko din yung same question din yung kay Sir Hero na yung pagka-explain ko po na pag batches, 3 batches, no? Say for example, 24 hours ang operation, may 3 batches. So every batch, merong dapat Muslim employee. Kasi sino po yung mag-supervise ng yung halalness no ng production all throughout the production. Kung isa lang ang Muslim employee nyo, hindi naman siguro kaya ng isang Muslim employee to work 24 hours, no? 3 batches. So dapat po talaga may every batch may Muslim employee nga. At saka talaga requirement po talaga pag mag-undergo na if you want to engage na into halal business, so dapat po talaga meron pong halal a Muslim employee po.
So I
As
hope that
requirement
is
ng PNS.
clear.
Opo.
Po, no? So as required by our Philippine National Standard, kailangan po talaga that once we embark on halal certification, meron po tayong employee na Muslim po, Muslim brother or sister, as sila po yung in authority po to verify or to assess po the halalness of your food production. So every batch din po, kailangan present sila. So kung 3 batches, dapat 3 employees po. Kawawa naman po kasi if siya pa yung mag-monitor for all the 3 batches. So super overtime na po iyon. Hindi na po yun halal. So anyways, so Mama Richo, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And if
Thank
there
you
will
for
be
that.
additional time later, we will be calling you back. So
Thank you, ma'am.
okay, so again, thank you for sending your questions and we would greatly appreciate it if yung questions nyo may nakalaki po na email addresses nyo kasi po if hindi po namin na-address as of this moment, a-addressin po namin siya through email. I-email po namin ang mga sagot. So, we will get back to the previously unread questions po or previously unentertained questions on risk assessment or risk analysis. So, Sir Norley, ready po tayo for next questions po, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, balik po tayo no sa food safety risk analysis na topic. So, meron pang questions dito. This one is from YouTube. Pwede po bang mag-cite ng references from the standards or limits of other countries? Example po, standards from Australia or Hong Kong.
Yes, definitely. Especially kung wala tayong local equivalent ng standard na yan. But in some cases, kung sakaling mayroon tayong equivalent na standard, mas okay na gamitin natin yung local version kasi mas tailored fit siya doon sa ating population. Pero generally, pwede naman siya.
So, ayun po, no? So, in assessing your risk, in doing your risk assessment, yung standards na gagamitin natin, if meron tayong existing standards in the Philippines, then ito po yung i-prioritize natin na gagamitin. So, if not naman, we can use other countries' references, especially if our product will go to that specific country or doon natin ibebenta. Then, we will use the standards or the limits po imposed by that specific country kung saan po pupunta ang ating products. Yun lang po dapat, reputable po yung ating mga sources, especially if sa internet lang po natin nakuha yung mga standards. And also, i-check din po natin yung mga version kasi meron pong update po from time to time ng mga versions po ng ating mga standards or limit. Baka po outdated na po yung reference na ginagamit natin. So another question, Sir Norley, from Facebook, from Mavi Karandang. Still on food safety risk analysis. Hello po, ask ko lang po, recommended nyo, ano po ba ang recommended na frequency to review the risk assessment?
Okay, to
Sir.
answer that question, ang recommended usually is annual review sa monitoring. Pero in case na may additional na ingredient katulad sa HACCP, kasi very important, kumbaga ang risk analysis kasi risk assessment is also part of the current HACCP. So, ganun din yung recommendation kung may bagong ingredient, may bagong process na maaaring mag-introduce ng another risk na wala siya before, kailangan i-review sa kabaguhin or mag-conduct ng another risk assessment. Pero otherwise, annual ang recommendation.
Okay, so yun. So annual po ang ating nire-recommend to review your risk assessment. However po, again, same with HACCP, if meron pong changes or significant changes in your production, may new ingredient, new equipment, new cleaning methods, then we need to review also the risk assessment kasi incorporated din po siya sa ating HACCP plan. So ayun, hope that was clear. So another question, sir. Okay, so pwede na rin po sila i-connect. So this is from Facebook, from Myla, and Ma'am Francesca. So pwede po bang makabili ng mga scientific journals sa bookstores? And saan po daw pwedeng kumuha ng copy ng Codex Alimentarius? So sir?
Okay. So to answer the question, so sa atin sa Philippines, meron tayong mga Philippine National Standard which are available online, for free siya. For the Codex Alimentarius, most ng kanilang mga standards is also accessible free online. Kung sakaling may bayad o may lock siya, pwede naman mag-request din sa source. For example, sa Codex Alimentarius, mag-i-email lang kayo, tapos explain nyo kung ano yung purpose kung bakit kayo hihingi ng copy. Kung kailangan talaga magbayad, kasi yung iba paid version talaga, kailangan magbayad talaga. Pero dito sa atin sa Philippines, usually free na nga usually yung mga PNS natin ngayon compared sa dati na kailangan mo magbayad pa. So I hope that answers that question.
Okay, so thank you very much, Sir Norley. So a lot of our resources, again, is available on the internet. So ating po mga standards, the Philippine National Standards, so the Codex Standards, available po siya online. So the internet and Google is your friend. Yun lang po dapat familiar po tayo on how to operate the internet and of course ensure na nasa proper sites, mga legit po tayo na mga sites, nakaka-access ng mga standards. So i-verify po natin if sakto ba yung sources natin ng mga standards online. So lahat po ito available online. Pwede po kayong mag-search on your own po. So meron pong nag-question dito, yung sa quiz app natin, anong ginagamit? So if you're interested, kahoot.it po, Kahoot. Pwede po kayong mag-create, meron pong free account for kung interested po kayo na pag-games din po to your other na mga engagements or kung teacher po kayo to have an interactive engagement. So meron pong free version po ng Kahoot online available. So easy lang din po siya i-manipulate. So nire-recommend po namin siya. Although hindi po kami paid ng Kahoot. Okay? So there are still others, no? So just please send in your request at reg.pwu, yung sinabi ko po kanina. reg.pwu, wait, I will review po. So I think it is posted na naman po sa Facebook niyo po. Ulitin ko later kung ano po yung website, yung email address where you can, ito po, regpwwebinar@gmail.com. Send in your presentation request or copy of presentation request at regpwwebinar@gmail.com. So we will send them maybe, probably, hopefully next week. So ito po, back po tayo sa that's it po muna, no, for the question on food safety risk analysis. So thank you very much, Sir Norley, for being back into answering those mga unanswered questions. So kung meron pa rin po, send them in, and yung email po, importante po, so that we can respond to you bago po tayo mag-end for this week. So ito, this is on HACCP na po ng mga questions. So this is from Facebook, from Mr. or Miss Joby Gato. So ang question niya is, required po ba in HACCP that or required po ba that we have an officer on food safety? Kasi they have daw a company, pero meron na silang safety officer, though usually ang safety officer nila is nakafocus on the safety of the employees, the employer, at yung nasa paligid ng planta or ng company. So okay na po ba yon na good for monitoring system? So actually, if food processing po kayo, kailangan po talaga, meron po tayong in charge, no? For sa food safety concern natin. Tanong po, is your safety officer well-versed po on food safety? So yun po, yung qualification po of a food safety officer who will maintain your food safety operation. Kasi po commitment din po iyon ng management niyo po. It goes to show how committed you are to enforcing food safety in your plant or in your processing facility. So kailangan, although it is not a must, pero kailangan po talaga siya to show your commitment to food safety, no? Dapat yung ating food safety officer is knowledgeable in food safety. Meron siyang trainings on food safety related, kasi iba rin po yung sa safety officer po na training, no? So however, if magaling yung safety officer nyo na aside from the safety of the employer, kaya niya ring gampanan yung role ng pagiging food safety officer, then that is good. So ayun, dapat lang siguro lakihan natin yung bonus ng ating food safety officer kasi ang dami na niyang responsibility. So ayun, so I hope that is clear na. For food processing, dapat meron talagang in charge or food safety officer po tayo to enforce our food safety compliance and our good manufacturing practices. Okay? Now to move on to other questions. So ang dami-dami pong questions now and it's very overwhelming. Thank you so much. So another question is, yung HACCP ba is a prerequisite program po or requirement po siya for ISO? And I think there is another question related to this. So necessary ba na ang HACCP, is it necessary to be HACCP certified if you are already ISO certified? Now, there will be a separate topic later this afternoon for ISO, so please stay tuned. But to answer that question now, yung HACCP certification po kasi is iba po from the ISO certification. So two different things po siya that addresses two different aspect po ng inyong company operation. So as of this time dito po sa Philippines, again, market-driven po ang HACCP. So hindi po siya required as of this time. So, yung unlike other countries na requirement talaga na dapat HACCP certified po ang inyong processing facility. Yung ISO certification kasi is more concerned or siya po yung framework for managing and improving the various aspect of the company's operation, yung quality management, environmental management, information security management. So lahat na po covered po ng ISO. Hindi po necessary na meron po tayong HACCP certification if a company is already ISO certified, pero beneficial po siya to pursue a HACCP certification in addition to your ISO certification or if your market will demand or kailangan siya ng inyong market for you to be HACCP certified. Kasi yung HACCP certification nyo will demonstrate the company's commitment again to producing safe food, which is the main aim of our HACCP. So para po ma-ensure natin that it meets the food safety regulations and standards. So certification po yung pinag-uusapan natin. However po, for ISO 2018, later po, may discussion po mamaya, so stay tuned. Kailangan embedded po yung HACCP natin. Hindi lang po siya kailangan na certified, pero the standard, the ISO 2018 standard requires the organization to implement a food safety management system that includes yung principles po ng HACCP. So the standard requires the organization to conduct a hazard analysis to identify potential hazards in the food production process and maka-establish po tayo ng critical points to control the hazard. So yung HACCP principles po is integrated into the ISO 2018 standards para po maka-provide ng systematic and proactive approach sa ating food safety management system. So yun po. Yung HACCP principles, embedded po siya sa ISO 22000. But it would be better, stepping stone po yung HACCP natin for nagawin siyang stepping stone for the ISO 22000 2080. Yun po. And then another question from YouTube. Ano po ba yung frequency ng on-site confirmation? So for the HACCP plan. So yung on-site confirmation, again, same with the risk assessment, no? Kung ano po yung frequency ng review. It will depend po on several factors such as ano po yung size at gaano po ka-complex yung ating production or yung ating operation. The level of risk associated with the food that you produce. High risk po ba yung pinuproduce natin? Is it for infants or specifically mga immunocompromised people? So, ganyan po, the higher the risk, the more frequent you do your on-site confirmation. But in general, recommended po na yung HACCP po natin, yung HACCP plan, included na po doon yung on-site confirmation. So, all the steps in your HACCP should be reviewed and validated at least annually po to ensure their continued effectiveness. And again, if there are changes in your processing like raw material, ang inyo pong equipment, ang inyong cleaning procedures, or meron po kayong inintroduce na bagong technology no in your production, then we need to review the HACCP plan. And of course, since meron pong changes in your production, kasi nag-introduce po tayo ng something new, then the process will be altered. Then, of course, we need to do again the site confirmation. If tama po ba? If what is written on paper is actually being practiced. So, or if what is being practiced is actually what you have written in your paper. So, ganun po ang ating validation or review po ng frequency ng ating review. So, another question from YouTube. May expiration po ba ang HACCP certificate ng isang employee? So, if your employee has participated in a training po for HACCP, then meron pong meron pong duration yan for expiry. So, I'm just not very certain kung how long po yung effectivity kasi depende rin po yan sa certification body nyo po na kinuha nyo to certify your plant or your processing. So, depende yun. Pero kasi po, hindi po siya forever again. Wala pong forever because there are certain information or certain na mga knowledge na, especially at this time na madali lang po matransmit yung information given our connectivity, no? Meron pong bago, like the 2020 version na po ng HACCP. So, if your certifying body is using the Codex HACCP 2020, so syempre dapat yung mga personnel na dapat marunong or dapat merong certificate ng HACCP, so dapat trained na rin po sila sa new version ng HACCP 2020. So yun po, updating lang po. Again, it will depend on your chosen certification body. So another question, this is from Facebook again. HACCP pa rin yung topic natin. From Miss Grace Basoy. So in appointing the HACCP team, the assigned HACCP team must have the training for GMP, food safety, HACCP orientation, and seminar on 5S, diba? So, yes, of course. So, okay lang po ba to conduct an internal training and seminar by the company employees expert about this, like a food technology? So, again, so yes, it would save you cost actually to have an in-house trainer, provided po that the resource person or the training provider is adequately equipped po to impart knowledge on those topics like the GMP, food safety, HACCP orientation. So dapat po examinin po na yung in-house trainer po natin capable po, well-trained on these topics and capable po siya on imparting this knowledge to the rest of the workers o yung mga kasamahan niya who are soon to be members of the HACCP team. Now, the expert should have completed, of course, kasi HACCP yung topic niya. So, the internal expert should have completed a HACCP training course. Meron siyang knowledge sa principles ng HACCP and meron na po siyang experience in developing a HACCP plan. Kasi po, yun po yung ituturo niya sa kasamahan niya or sa mga members ng team. Ano? And of course, this will involve verifying the credential of the in-house trainer. I-include po ito sa inyong HACCP plan as part of the credentials ng trainer na they have conducted an assessment, na-assess po yung kanyang training skills and knowledge, and meron po monitoring sa quality ng training na kanyang na-provide and yung delivery. Kung effective po ba yung training na na-provide sa kanya. So this should be, again, documented po sa ating HACCP plan. If internal po, yung kukunin natin na trainer. Kasi titingnan din po ito if ever na meron na po kayong HACCP auditor or ng certifying body niyo po. And another is, meron po if in-house lang po ang lahat, so yun, dapat talaga ma-test out po kung effective po yung na-impart na information within the organization. So marami pong requirement for that, no? So yun, dapat magpakabihasa po ang inyong in-house trainer on these food safety related topics. However po, if DOST can also provide you free trainings po related to food safety. We can assist you po if malapit na po kayo sa DOST offices po. Okay. So another is for a while. Hanap pa po tayo ng mga questions. Okay. So, yung HACCP plan, we have also another question here. Ang HACCP plan po ba is pwede bang can be done by an outsider or a third party? So, ganito po. Our HACCP system or our HACCP plan should be suited or should be made exclusively para po sa inyong production or sa inyo pong specific processing or specific product group category. Now, yung HACCP plan po, if you have a consultant or if you have a third party doing that HACCP plan, i-make sure lang po na yung po talagang HACCP plan is na-implement po siya throughout the company. Hindi po na kahit gaano kaganda yung HACCP plan nyo po na pinagawa nyo po outside, if the people, the HACCP team, the management is not aware or hindi po talaga fully na-absorb nila yung HACCP plan at hindi po siya na-i-implement sa planta mismo, then your HACCP will fail. Kasi po, hindi lang po sa papel yung HACCP, no? So the papel is the documentation. But what will be examined is your documentation plus your actual implementation in your production process or in your in your whole process in producing food. So yon, if you have a third party, dapat po well-immersed po siya and kayo din po as part ng workers or you as management po, alam niyo po kung ano po yung content ng HACCP plan at yun po talaga yung actual na ginagawa nyo. Kasi nga, napakaganda ng HACCP plan pero pagdating actual on the production or in the area na mismo, walang nangyayari kasi hindi alam ng mga tao na ano yung PRP, hindi alam ng mga tao na dapat meron palang ini-implement na mga prerequisite procedures or mga sanitary procedures or kulang nga yung mga tao sa training on hygiene. So yung HACCP plan is not only a paper, it is dapat i-live out po siya ng isang processing company. So yun po on about HACCP. So, for the rest of your questions po, I hope clear po. Please po, send nyo po and with your email again para ma-address po namin kasi hindi po kaya ng time namin to address everything as of this moment. So, marami pa rin pong questions, no? Coming. Another one, last po siguro for HACCP is from from YouTube, Klang Salinda, from Ma'am Klang Salinda. So under HACCP po, required po ba na FDA certified po ang raw materials to acquire a HACCP certification? So yung FDA certification po ba, meaning CPR po or may license to operate po ba? So yung ganito po, the raw materials, depende po yun sa requirement nyo po sa inyong company. If you want, the requirement po ng company, if you want that your raw materials have certain certifications, hindi lang po talaga if you want na CPR na siya or another is yung GAP certified ba yung inyong raw material, depende po yun sa company nyo. Pero hindi po siya required. It would actually depend on how you would do your HACCP plan. So if wala po kayong certain analysis or certain certifications na nire-require sa inyong raw material, how will you handle that pagdating na po sa hazard analysis? So yung products po, your inherent hazards na content ng inyong products, doon na po natin siya i-address sa prerequisite procedures po natin in implementing or when we are implementing the HACCP. So yun, I hope na-answer po natin lahat ng questions natin? Okay? So, Ma'am Maritzu, game pa po ba tayo for 2 more questions on halal?
Ma'am, please.
Yes po.
Apo. Wrap up na po for
Okay.
the day for the mass.
Okay, sige po. So actually, we ran out of time na po, no? So our time is 11:20 and there will be a mass po. Today is Ash Wednesday. For those Catholics po, PWU will be having a live broadcast of a mass this 12 noon. So if you are interested, mga Catholic po natin na mga viewers, you may view them. And this will be until 1:30 po. So again, we still have a lot of topics to talk about this afternoon, and I will be wrapping up this morning's presentation. I hope that you have learned a lot. And again, after the broadcast at 1:30 of the Mass or the Ash Wednesday Mass, we will be looking forward to a discussion on the ISO 22000, food defense, food fraud, threat assessment, and vulnerability assessment. So thank you so much for your participation. And before we break for lunch, bago po tayo kumain, let's not forget na maghugas po tayo ng kamay. So thank you very much again, everyone, and see you back at 1:30.